Look at that. All right. I bet you can hear me now. Let me mute myself. Switch over here. And turn that on. I wonder if I can just hide that forever. Nope. Okay. All right. One person possibly. We're back to building spaceships and core. Same thing we were doing yesterday. Today we're going to try to finish up that spaceship to a functional level. Basically, I'm not going to have finish the whole polished game. That's coworkers really building that. I'm just going to make the spaceship such that you can fly around with multiple people. You can shoot lasers at each other. If you hit each other with lasers, they do something. That is my goal here. I got a new microphone. Hence the slight debugging. Other than that, yeah. Let me do a little refresh order yesterday. This is the map I was just testing out stuff with. Go to the spaceship map. All right, so we got our spaceship. We've been running around with it. Does a lot of things. We did much work yesterday on it. Our to-do list that we left with was only four things that are moderate size. One was update the rotation used for the offsetting of the clients. So for, I guess, building up, I don't know if you were the same person who was here yesterday. Who knows? Maybe people come soon. Maybe they'll watch the archives later. Whatever. As it works right now, you get in it, fly a spaceship around, control with your mouse. You can make it roll, and if you hold down left click, it shoots lasers everywhere. And if you press the thruster buttons, you can fly around the world, shooting lasers as you go. And if you hit the ground, it actually stops you unceremoniously. Oof. All right. The part of the challenge with this kind of nuanced detail is that we're using the ability to... We're kind of limited on custom events. Networked events have a pretty hard limit of 10 per second, and we're using most of those for the movement because the player capsule himself has certain limitations in this engine. You cannot roll your view more than 90 degrees. You can't go upside down, and you cannot look straight up or straight down. And that has issues for a spaceship where up is not a unique concept. It can be any direction, and you don't want to run into that problem. So the player does not go with the ship at all. The ship is kind of all script nonsense, and it works pretty well. One of the details here was we used an ability when you fire because the server needs to know where you are shooting from and what angle you're shooting at, and that would be another event, fighting with the movement events, and that's a pretty hard limit. We're using most of the movement events for movement, or most of the event limit for movement. All right. On top of that, we wanted the lasers, you know, they were one on the left, one on the right, one on the left, one on the right. That is an offset based on your view, but the ability only transmits a forward vector, and a forward vector is only 2/3 of the information of rotation, right? It tells you the pitch and yaw, it doesn't tell you the roll, and if you need to know left and right side, you need to know the roll. If you roll your view, the offset's a little different. And so what we did was we took the movement update the client sends to the server includes the rotation of the ship because it needs to be able to render it to all the other players, needs to send it back to them, all that stuff. It needs to look correct. And so we just use that file, even though it's a little bit out of date. The server's data is a little bit behind, and we can show that by, in single player preview, you are both the client and the server. So I'm firing it, and then I start rolling. You see the lasers splitting a little bit, and there's two of them here. That is the little bit out of date. And my hope is that in an actual game where you're shooting lasers into the spaceships, this is so minor that it doesn't matter. If your hitbox is off by that amount, in the exact case where you're rolling at maximum speed, whatever. You're very close to hitting or missing anyway. If you, we could have done some more stuff to try to do the components of the, like at the roll, but take the pitch and yaw from the actual forward vector. We didn't even bother doing that. This actually turns out to be less minor or less important. So let's say I'm firing and I'm yawing left and right real fast. If I pause in one of those, you can't even tell. But if I go find this projectile in the hierarchy, this one right here, see where that widget is? And I'll click the server one. Slightly behind or in front. Even less important. So your projectile will hit, a 1/10 of a frame earlier or later. Doesn't matter. Okay. Another thing we did yesterday, which was misguided. I spent a lot of time trying to do something, unfortunately, that I had forgotten the original reason, or just maybe it was, I hadn't even thought of it in the first place. I don't know. But I moved the spaceship. It used to be an equipment, and it used to detach a few pieces of it. And so the local player has a camera that's detached and flying around as you control it. The server has a server representation that's not even here anymore. That was just a box of server contents that they could put stuff in. And then the other clients would then take the ship geo itself and put it where they wanted it. I rearranged this so that it was just use the spaceship itself, made it a group instead of equipment, and made it just have the server move it and let it replicate. I forgot the key detail to this was that when you let it replicate from the server and you're not moving it smoothly with like move to or move continuous, that replicates only 10 times a second because the server only runs 10 times a second. And therefore, when the other client looked at the ship, it stepped a lot. It looked really bad. I spent much time yesterday trying to patch this up in a different way where the other clients would then reconstruct the same kind of similar logic where they smoothly interpolate, add a little bit of offset, extrapolate, that kind of thing. I think this was really misguided. In hindsight, I thought about it afterward. I think that I added a bunch more error that didn't need to be there, and I should have just gone back to how it was originally. In some regards, I think being a group instead of equipment makes sense. Doesn't need to be an equipment. It was convenient for one thing. It doesn't really matter. That just added complexity. One of the reasons I had done that is I was misunderstood that I thought the server context caused problems with collision for the laser detection, and it didn't. We did some testing and turned out it was all right. So the first monumental task, unfortunately, is to try to get this back to how it was. Return to server context model. Part of the way I had set this up was that the server script had set some variables on itself and had replicated networked variables. And those the client then used to reconstruct the same logic the server used to interpolate and smoothly move. And even though they have different frame rates, it would have been a lot closer instead of having a smoothing on top of a smoothing, which was ugly. All right. So here's what we're doing. We are going to find the old spaceship that I had shared on community content that I didn't update at all yesterday and drag one into here and then merge the two. Because this is actually the project I shared it from, if I try to drag it in, I'm going to end up with a funny state. Maybe let's find out. Spaceship servers, yes. So this is, because I had updated the template yesterday, this doesn't have the server context in it, right? It's not the state I actually want. So we're going to go over to an empty map, go to community content, find our, man, people make a lot of stuff. That is great. We're going to review some of the stuff when we have a chance. Gameplay spaceship right there. Import it. It'll show up in project content because it knows I made it. It looks at the name and says, hey, that's you. You don't have to put this in someone else's content. I drag one to the scene. And then, I don't know that I have to do this, but I'm going to de-instance the entire thing and then Control-C it. That way I know that I'm not accidentally getting some mixed template definitions, or if I drag into the scene, it might say, hey, I already know what that is, and use some of the same stuff. I don't want that. I want this to be a fresh thing. Ish. The templates, the scripts might still overlap. We will find out. What is this? Oh, it's underground. Okay. I'm like, what is this selection box? All right, so we're out of here. Don't need that. Don't need to save. After spaceship, paste. Bam. Now we have two of them. Okay. So one of these is old, one of these is new. This has got a server context in them. Doesn't have lasers. This one, I guess we did add a server context eventually. So part of this, we might actually have to split the server script into two, or let's see, current speed. We did end up putting a network property on the root of this thing. That's kind of ugly. All right, we're gonna clean this up a little bit as well. Drinking some cream soda. Great stuff. All right, let's see how much of a mess this is to mix together. So I'm gonna take this guy and stick it up here. Keep the script with it, and look at the scripts themselves. So my previous server script, did it actually make these different scripts, or did it? Yes, okay, so I actually just have, if I go into here, I have 2 client, 2 server. That is good because they're very different. I'm glad it didn't clobber one or something like that. Could have been bad. Okay, 1 second, answer your question here. So I'm on Discord asking questions. I've been helping this guy all day, so give him a minute. What else over here? Almost back. This is about what I can do on the stream. Very helpful. One more second and I'll be right back. Alright, we're back. Now to combine our spaceships. This horrible mess of getting these back together into one state. So I like this being a group. I like having a trigger to get into it. I like the server script being in the server context. That was set up that way so that it could spawn lasers from the weapon, and they were trying to mimic the built-in projectile behavior a little bit with weapons, where you get a server version and a client version, and they're independent. There's no replication. We want each thing to do it itself because they were doing our manual positioning itself. It's going to conflict with the server representation itself. Great, that's all there. In the client context, we've got the ship, the camera, the geo. Okay, so this basically, the structure is the same. Then the difference is what properties does it have and what do the scripts actually do. That is going to change a lot. We're trying to take the new one and fix it up to be like the old one, not the other way around. I think that is less work. Where is my chat? I should make sure I have that open. I do have that open. Great. More people have showed up. Oh, man. All right. Let's see what we can do with this. For custom properties, comparing the two. This is actually kind of hard to compare. So this says thrust, drag, speed, and forward bindings. Thrust, drag, speed, forward bindings, update frequency. This guy had the projectiles, the sound effects, and the current speed. That's great. We need those. Do we need current speed? We probably don't need current speed anymore because we're changing how this works. So we're gonna get rid of that. We're gonna need some network properties, but I don't want them on the root anymore. That was kind of a hack anyway. You don't want. Basically, the organization is that the root should be the things that a novice user can set. Admittedly, this is a pretty advanced template, and novice users might run into problems trying to use it. But The concept is these are things you would change just to put a spaceship in your map to make it do something different. The custom properties inside are things you would have to be looking at scripts and trying to change functionality to care about, like the references on the server script to the ability. If you wanted a different laser ability, I guess, or multiple, you might fiddle with this, but that's something that advanced users would be doing. This server script, no, not that one, that's outside of the hierarchy. This server script has spaceship server representation, and then position speed rotation. We need these. They can't be on the server script anymore though, because I put it inside the server context, and then the client script can't see it. We'll need a separate networked object somewhere in here. It's just a little ugly. We can like hide it on the server context maybe. We'll probably just do that. I don't want to add an extra networked object for minimal value to organize it a little better. All right. So what we've got, laser ability and spaceship. We need server representation. We'll definitely need that. Drag it in. Movement's more important than the laser. Like, not more important, but in the hierarchy of when I made it and how I'm organizing it. You'll notice that in the spaceship itself, the laser's at the bottom. The movement's the most important part of this thing. So we'll put it in that order. I'm really big on consistency. Position, speed, rotation. I need all three of these on here is where we're going to put them. So position is a vector 3. Position. Speed is a float. This ship only flies forward. It doesn't follow real physics, so we don't need velocity. You know what direction it's going, it's where it's faced. And then a rotation for rotation. And we're actually add another thing here. We need reference to the server context, which we didn't need before. Now we do, so that we can actually get those properties and set them. All right. And if we keep going through here, we got the ship, got trigger, we got those properties. Now the client script. I think that's the only thing left that has custom properties on it. Spaceship, geo, camera, trigger, laser ability. Spaceship, geo, camera, server script. Okay. What does this use the trigger for? That is a question. Interacted event. All right, so on an equipment, we can't just use the things off the root. We need it interacted. Sure, okay. It does also need a reference to server context, which is equivalent to the server script reference here. How did I organize this here? Right above the laser ability. Yep, that seems fine. Okay. So I like my hierarchy. It probably has problems. I'll figure it out as I'm scripting. But here we go. Let's look at the scripts. This is going to be a bit of a mess. The client script, what should I want to do first? The client script is the majority of the logic, but it's also much bigger. I don't know if I want to do the server script first. One more Discord question. Done. Okay. I think we'll do the server script first. So this, we're going to just open the two of them next to each other. They have the exact same name, which is inconvenient. When you open them here, you'll see that one of them has a 1 on the end. Yep, okay. So the old one has a 1 on the end because when I copied it into this project, it said, hey, we've already got that script. This one's different. So we need to differentiate somewhere. You can't just put two files in the hard drive with the same name. And to do that, it put a 1 on the end. So we've got two kind of different scripts. I guess I'll move it up a little bit. It looks more similar. let us take this guy and make sure that things line up with the actual properties on the script. So we've got spaceship, laser blade. We're missing the two in the middle. Copy those right out of there. Server representation and server context. Okay, and then on the actual spaceship itself, which it had reference to, we previously got update frequency and laser projectile. We actually spawned the projectile the same as the client does. Well, at least that's what we were doing. Oh, we did do it actually. Look at that. Okay. The reason we spawned the same projectile is that the person could put a projectile, could actually put a script on it or a template on it or something that we can't just say, oh, let's just, keep track of where it should be and look for collisions. We actually want the projectile to do whatever it wants to do. With the caveat that the person doing that would need to know that it's spawned on client server separately and not to do things like try to play VFX that would fail on the server, whatever. Figure that out. Okay, so we don't need thrust, drag. We don't need things that affect acceleration. There's a general pattern for this spaceship because we're passing the velocity to the server every frame and it's just assuming you're going at a constant speed, which often is true. I thought about trying to factor in acceleration when I first did this and decided that was too complicated and didn't gain much. In between updates, you don't move much. Like the acceleration does not affect your trajectory very much. If you say, hey, my velocity is 10, and then a tenth of a second later, hey, my velocity is 11, and it just assumed you were going 10 the whole time, that's pretty close, and it will correct itself versus it trying to add acceleration into there. And it's a lot more data to replicate. I don't know how close to the limit of the size of a single event we have with our movement update, but I assume we probably don't have that much extra space in there. All right, we don't need the bindings on the server. We don't need update frequency, maybe. Update period. Oh, we already have it. Okay. Okay, that's everything we need. Rotation gap factor. Okay, I remember what that's there. Got offsets. Where would I put this in a shared place? It's unfortunately that's hard to define as a custom property because it's multiple. Oh, I remember how to do this. That's probably on my to-do list. Make custom laser offset. Yeah, we'll worry about that later. Okay, we're gonna actually put objects in the hierarchy, but then both the server and client script can do the same thing without having to just duplicate code. All right, so what we're basically doing is looking at the script and saying, hey, now we're kind of back to the old pattern. What did it look like? Position speed offset, last position receive time. Position speed offset, last position receive time. Last rotation we needed for the laser shooting, so we're gonna move that down. And gun offset index. Let's put those like that. Maybe movement comment for cap select on for movement for shooting. Okay, and then set visibility in the player. It's no longer equipment, so we can't do that. Instead, we have a enter ship function, which sets your visibility off and gives you laser ability. We didn't actually do the exit ship event. Yeah, I spent much time when I first made this into supporting the case where you would we could get out of the ship, but I never tested it because I didn't have a way to do it, and I realized that it's kind of fraught, and that in most spaceship games you'd be in the spaceship the entire time, or even if you like started on a space station and got into a ship, you would get out of it by dying and your ship would be destroyed. The case where you can actually like press F to get out of your spaceship or something is very rare. And what would it do? Does it continue moving? I mean, there's a lot of questions there, and I having never tested it, almost certainly doesn't work. I probably forgot a whole bunch of cases and that sort of thing. So I said, screw it, we'll just forget that entirely. Admittedly, setting your visibility back to true probably should do somehow. We'll worry about that when we make a game. You could do it in a separate script entirely. All right. Let's see. I'm going to promote this stream slightly now that I've been given the okay to say some things. Core streams. Oops, that's not a link. Oop. Man, I need an icon. That's embarrassing. All All right, we will fix that. I am a purple guy on Twitch. Not while we're streaming though. All right. Should probably give a caveat. This is complex scripting stuff. All right, so the ship update kind of stayed the same, kind of changed, right? Because this one, how did this stay the same? So I took this code here. If this stuff got removed, which I need to add back in, is the thing. So here, it's no longer script, and it's no longer spaceship. Now it is server context. We didn't need server current speed anymore. No, we needed position rotation, position speed rotation again. And then old position, offset current position. What is old position? Is this even used? It's not used. Okay, great. Copied it from somewhere. I think that was something we had yesterday right before we were trying to fix the problem. Okay. Then last position receive time, we got that. Speed, rotate 2. Okay, so the new line here is this one, which we do need. This is what we needed for the guns. Basically, to keep this smooth looking, when someone else is flying a ship, when you get a new rotation update, you don't just snap the rotation of this ship. You rotate 2. It's a little behind in time, but it looks smooth. We want the server representation to do exactly the same thing because, and we're going to actually bring this server representation down here, because we want it to line up. If you shoot a shot, if the server thinks you hit, it should look like you hit on your client. It won't necessarily look like it hit to the person who got shot because their ship is in a different state. But I'm kind of banking on the fact that when you play the spaceship game, you're in first person, and the way it would fail is that the laser would appear to go behind you, and you can't see that. So you feel like you got shot. Sure, laser was kind of close to you. We'll see how bad it actually feels. And we need to set the last rotation for the lasers. We want those to be as close as possible to the right position. And so we don't want to worry about this lerping thing. We just want to say whatever we last got as an update, pretend that's exactly our rotation to get this roll value. So we'll stick that in there. I'll actually put it at the bottom again just to organize this is the position stuff. This is for lasers. Yeah, okay. And then this tick function had 4 lines before. Now it's got more. What did I change? Execute event. Destroy. We didn't destroy anymore either. I do actually need this function back because we're going to have to detach the server representation. So I have to bring this code back. We'll put that here. Whenever you detach something from the template, inherently when you delete an object, it deletes all of its children. Or destroy. If you detach something from the template, then that's no longer true. The reason we're detaching things is because we want to move them around smoothly and not have to move the whole spaceship, which is networked and would send a bunch of updates that the client doesn't care about. So we're going to take that and put it down here. So equipped, unequipped, we don't have that anymore. Instead, we've got enter ship. Execute event on the ability is to fire lasers. Destroyed event, we just put in there. No, we didn't do that. Okay, we need this line. Let's put it up here. And then let's set a consistency. Let's get these in order. These should match these. This is basically my thinking. Oh man, it's Buck Monster. Howdy. All right, I feel like I need to compare this event here, or this function here. T offset position, T offset position. Oh, right. Maybe current offset, current position. Old offset we don't use. All right, so this got removed. Ship forward. How did we? Oh, we just made a really long line. That's awful. This is actually the same thing. Forward times speed times delta. It is the same thing. See this? Is a dotted white line. That's the too much text line. All right, so the last thing we need to do is change this to server representation. In fact, everywhere I'm doing, I guess the ID is going to be on the spaceship, but everywhere else I do, nope, just that one. Like everywhere else I do spaceship, nope, I need it down here too, because it's a destroyed event. I wonder if I have a preference here. My consistency between these two lines. All right, we'll do that. All right, so I have some faith that this will work. And in reality, this is a complex enough thing that when I try it, there will be 6 bugs, and we'll figure them out and fix them, and that'll be great. All right, so now the client scripts. Let's go over here, grab this guy and this guy. When I first started writing these things, by the way, or just general game logic in core, I had this whole pattern to naming scripts about what they do. Is it the door manager, the door sound player, whatever? And it turns out most of the time I just like the pattern of having 2 scripts in every template, just one for server, one for client, and have it handle every piece. Having more scripts, both like organizationally for some people it makes more sense, but you end up with 2 downsides. One is that you just have more objects, which is more expensive, and the other one is that they often fight each other depending on what your things are doing. You have to be very careful not to have them override the same thing. Sometimes you have a weapon that has a bunch of scripts on it. In fact, our weapons often do, but they all or many of them attach to the equip event, and if they play in different orders, sometimes this causes bad things. Or you have them in an unequip event and one of them destroys it, and then the next one tries to do something and the object's not there, and it gives you a script error. And like, I generally just put it all in one script. It's easy to handle. Until I get something really unwieldy, I will worry about that later. I may eventually just make a full-fledged game in my streams here. If I do that, then I would have to build all the pieces. What I'd probably end up doing is having a bunch of central scripts, having some scripts that are required in many places, or a script that defines a bunch of very useful utility functions and then throw them all in a global table in _G and just access them from other scripts, for example. I'm probably hurting other people who think I should be using require, but I like global variables. It's my thing. Mentioned before, drinking some cream soda. I recommend this. Oh, here it is. Stuff's very good. Found it this week, actually. All right, so the client scripts. These have a lot of things. Does the new script I have the custom properties that match the hierarchy? No, it doesn't. Spaceship, geo, camera, trigger. We don't have server context. All right, that guy. Stick it in here. Server context. Oh man, Core Live is hosting me. Ooh, wow. All right. Hello, everyone. And then laser ability. All right, and from the spaceship. For new people, I am building a spaceship that you can fly around in 3 dimensions without any inherent up axis, and I'm trying to get to the point where you can shoot lasers at each other and hit the other players. It's a pretty complex system that is mostly some script hackery. We're working around some limitations where the player is not actually part of this at all. You basically get in the ship and press the controls and it just moves the ship around and your player is hiding away somewhere else. Hopefully this can enable some cool games. I know at least one of my coworkers is hoping to build something out of this, but I know a couple others have looked at it. It has very gamey controls. There was a specific game or control scheme they had in mind. It doesn't follow what you'd expect if you're a physics major or an astrophysicist. That was the first version I built. I used to study physics, and then where this one instead, it only flies forward. If you turn, it turns immediately somehow. It has drag from nothing, and you press a button to turn your thrusters on constantly, and because of the drag force, you pull up to a maximum speed. It also has a limited turn velocity. I could just talk about the design of that a little bit. We basically have this kind of philosophy. Very few games have limited turn speed, right? And the most common case, and the case where it honestly feels pretty good, is on a console. If you have a controller and you have a joystick, or even a PC game with a joystick, you can only push the joystick so far. So you're inherently just have limited rotation speed. But wherever you push the joystick is how fast it turns. That feels pretty good. On a PC, I've played a couple games that were shooters but had limited rotation speed. And what happens is that a lot of players with the mouse get used to kind of mapping in their head, even subconsciously, that a position on your mouse pad is a position in 3D or a rotation in 3D. And so you move it one way, then move it back, you should be looking in the same place. But not necessarily if you move at the same speed. And this is one of the reasons that shooter players tend to dislike mouse acceleration as a Windows feature, is that it doesn't follow that. If you move it fast one way, then slow back, you end up looking somewhere else. When you limit rotation speed, you get the same problem. If you move your mouse too quickly, it's cutting off some of your rotation speed, and then you move back slowly and end up somewhere else. I don't like that. I played some games that had this kind of hard, and it felt terrible. That being said, That is actually what we did right here. It just limits your rotation speed, and the rotation speed is pretty high, and it feels okay. I'm going to go with it for now. The solution I like a lot more, but has a lot of other trade-offs in this setup, is what often I call tank controls, and probably comes up in, I've seen it in tank games at least, which is that your mouse moves freely as fast as you want, but it's not actually rotating your vehicle, it's rotating your target. You have some target indicator on your screen, or it's just controlling your rotation, but as you turn quickly, you're actually just seeing the inside of the tank or whatever, inside the spaceship. And your vehicle is constantly rotating at its max speed to get to the rotation you're looking at. So you'd be in your cockpit, you turn really quickly to the side, and then over half a second, it would rotate to match. But if you fired during that time, it would fire off in the original angle, not where you're looking. That would cause a lot of problems for us. It's a lot of complexity. We're not going to do it. But that is my preferred scheme for this sort of thing. All right, so we're looking back at these properties: thrust, low, high, drag, rotation speed, the 4 bindings, update frequency, and the projectiles. Okay, that is all the same. Great. Let us look at, we're just comparing 2 scripts: local player, lurk time, rotation gap. Yes, this stuff is all new, and we don't need it. This is all the stuff we had yesterday that I think was a bad idea, in hindsight. So we're going back to the old system. We do need the local player. We don't need the lerp speed, offset, or group. We're just going to do exactly the same lerping the server is doing, because now we have the same data. Got offsets we still need. In ship, position, speed, quaternion. The comment previously was for speed. And I think all 3 of them are used. Maybe not. We'll get back to this comment. So we might need to fix up this comment. Full toggle is firing. We've got, okay, his firing was new. We didn't have that anymore. Thruster level. Last sent update time. Position received time. We need that guy. Didn't have it before. Here, we got rid of it yesterday. And then current offset. Yes, so this is the old lerp system that we're bringing back. Meanwhile, these 2 are offsets we don't, or is the new system we don't want anymore. So we're trying to match the behavior between the server and the client so that you seeing another ship and the server match exactly. All right, and then the other thing we wanted was to reorganize it slightly. I want to bring is firing. Well, that's fine, because these are controls. These are things that your buttons do. And these are, even though it's related to weapons, it goes with control stuff. All right. And uninteracted and unequipped were the previous, because we moved it from equipment to a group. It's the same behavior. Let's see if the function actually does the same thing. Set override camera, set look road rotation. Yep. Current position, current view quaternion. Yep. Geovisibility, last update time. Yep. In ship, true, and events to broadcast, we actually do need now because it's a group. Exit ship, we're not going to do this. Let's just get rid of that function. I don't think we were calling it. Like I said before, it's very rare that a spaceship game lets you get out of the spaceship. It could be something we could do, and we could add it later, but I was never testing it, and so it almost certainly had lots of bugs in it. All right, so on destroyed, camera and geo. Yep, so we're now detaching the geo again. Let's back to that pattern. Bring that in. Binding pressed. Oh, we need this function back. This is a new thing we will have. Bam. Okay. Okay, it's just not here at all. We will leave it there for a minute. We might have to change it. Let's see. We might not have to change it. Okay, so the one thing we have to do is it's not the server script anymore. It's the server context that has these. Remove the custom properties because the server script is in the server context, so we can't see it. If we get a new position, we update the offset, which we actually have now. This should match our, let's get the new server script in here. Compare. Should match this behavior right here, I think. So you update the offset, update the position, and we get the position receive time. We don't care when we received a speed or rotation because those we don't interpolate ourselves. We're just taking the last value we had, and that's that. So it's current speed, and for rotation, we just call rotate to, and that's all we need. In fact, we don't want to rotate the server context. We want to rotate the server representation. No, wait, this is client context. Oh, geo-rotate. Sorry, I'm misreading this. Okay. So that works. Great. Then on binding pressed, which is down here, see that we have roll toggle and is firing, then the 3 thruster levels. This firing wasn't there before. That's fine. We want it. Binding released. Same deal. It's got an extra thing in it. On cast. This guy is just right out. That was a approach at the lasers that didn't work. Don't need it anymore. On execute, this is firing the gun. This is all new code. We're going to revisit this afterward. It's got a little bit of hackery in it. We were testing to see if it worked. It did. So we're not going to, for instance, just hard code a number here. We're going to have that be a property. We'll get back to that. Clamp rotation component works the same. This was a helper function. Basically, we wanted to limit how much you could rotate in a frame, but the number was between 0 and 359.999. So if I tried to clamp it in a normal manner, that didn't make sense. I needed to keep it between 0 and 5 or 355 and 360 or something like that. And then the tick function. Tick function does a lot of things. It doesn't do the same things. We'll get to that in a second. And down here, we need to attach one more thing. So equipped, unequipped, we don't have those anymore. We have interacted instead. Destroy event, we already have here. Yep, okay. Server script, network property change. Okay, this is the one we don't have right now. And then the 2 binding functions. Let's put that in there. It's server context, not server script. Context. Okay. And then geo also needs to be detached. Okay. So tick function. Tick function is a lot of code, but it's organized. So if in ship, this is if you're the pilot. It does very different things if you're the pilot and if you're not. It you first of all can't see the ship, and it's mostly about taking your input and figuring out exactly where you are as accurately as we can. This is called 60 times a second, and then sending updates when we can to the server. That's probably mostly the same. We'll check. And this is when you're not in the ship. This is the thing that we're basically just going to have to clobber because we changed yesterday. We want it to interpolate the same as the server does. All right, so when you're in the ship, we get the mouse delta rotation value, and we make this, we clamp the values. Yep, same. We get the roll. If the roll toggle, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, instead of using left and right to do yaw, we're using left and right to do roll. So we're moving this from Z to X. This is, if you think about your axes a little bit, yeah, here we go. So by default, you're looking down the positive X-axis, which is the red one. This is Y, this is Z. So pitch is up and down, that's around the Y-axis. Yaw is left and right, that's around the Z-axis. And roll is, I can't do it in the editor, it's rolling left and right, and that's around the X-axis. So we move the Z component to the X-axis, now we've got roll. All right. And if I could just line these up, you know that, like, find the differences? Can't quit them line, okay. I can't, I don't, so I can open my diff tool. I don't have a diff tool on this computer. That's unfortunate. Stealth quaternion, current view quaternion. This looks almost the same. It might be exactly the same. I think it is. Okay. So we're taking, basically the way the spaceship controls work, if you're playing a first-person shooter, up is up. It's a constant. When you move your mouse left and right, you yaw. When you move your mouse up and down at pitch, but you're always relative to up. If you're looking straight up and you move your mouse, or you know, up a lot and you move your mouse, let me show you. If you're looking up a lot and you move your mouse, you stay looking up. You're yawing relative to the ground. Where in a spaceship, there's no up. Yeah, script error. Just a minute. It's probably because I'm halfway done with this. If you're in a spaceship and you move your mouse to the side, it doesn't have a reference frame. It doesn't have an up. So it should just act like you're on level ground. Just move exactly left and right on your screen, no matter what. To do that, we use quaternions. Quaternions represent rotations, but they are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't care about, they don't have gimbal lock. They don't have an up direction. All the directions are equivalent, and you can multiply them together to apply rotations on top of rotations in like each one's local space. It's like if you take something, rotate it one way, and then rotate again the other way. That's what you get by multiplying them. So we keep track of our view quaternion in each frame. We multiply in the delta that you get from moving your mouse, and then we do some things with it. But that's basically what we're doing here. All right, so our drag is still the same. Threshold level is still the same. Current speed looks to be the same. Not quite. All right, so we have this new position thing. What are we doing with the new position? Oh, we're raycasting. We're doing the ground collision. That's what we did with this. How do we lose our ground collision on the server? Do we never have it? Oh, right, because the client... Right, so the server... We did a little bit of work on ground collision on the server, then we decided that was the wrong place. That's why some of the code was there. Because, admittedly, you generally want to do things on the server when you can, as like a general game design rule, but the smaller your game is, the less you care if someone could hack it in some way. Who's going to put a ton of effort into hacking this game, right? You wait till it's big to fix those problems. So in this case, we just do the hit detection of the client because the client knows exactly where they are. So we're looking at, hey, where do we move? Can we send a trace there? We hit the ground. We hit the ground. Okay, we hit something. Set our thrusters off. And then that ends up replicating to the server. It's kind of nice. Okay, so thruster level. Okay, so we're down to near the end of this function. In current speed, we increment by Newton's method, and then position, we do the same thing, and we set the position of the camera. Here, current speed, then instead of current position, we just set to new position. It's the same thing, right? This right here probably matches this right here. I really hope it does. Close my search here so I don't have things highlighted randomly. And then down here, if you didn't hit the ground, then we set it. If we try to set... try to do a trace. If we hit the ground, then we set that to our position. That's fine. Okay. Then we set the position of the camera, and then we're back to setting updates. If it is time to send an update, then we broadcast server and update current position, current speed, new rotation. It is current position, current speed, new rotation. That seems correct. And then we update the update time. And if we are firing, this is a new thing, we shoot the laser. All right. One minor note here that came up with a bug apparently. I'm looking into it for just a second here. I like this pattern. If I sometimes I wish I had a piece of paper or a whiteboard in front of a camera. I might do that someday. Let me draw a picture on a note card and hold it up for you. Basically, the problem here, there's two ways to do a periodic update in a tick function or in script. You can do a thing and then wait until so much time has elapsed, and then do the thing and then wait until so much time has elapsed. Or similarly, I could set, right here, I could change this to time. So every time this happens, then look, the last update time is now, and then wait till we've passed the period, or amount of time again, and then do it again. Excuse me. And that's a pretty safe pattern. The problem is that the problem in my mind is not a very large problem, is that it tends to drift a little bit, right? So if I have I'm going to say I have it 60 frames a second, and I tell my thing to update 40 times a second, which is not a round multiple. Then on the first frame it says, okay, time to update. And then it says, hey, let's wait 1/40th of a second. Well, 1/40th of a second in 60ths is 3 halves. It's 1.5 of them. So then it goes 1.5 frames and then says, hey, I need to wait till the next frame. Like, it doesn't even check until the next frame. So then it fires in the next frame, then it says time again, waits 1.5 frames, next frame, 1.5 frames, next frame, and you get this. You get it that it sends an update every other frame. It actually ends up sending 30 updates instead of 40 when you asked for 40. So instead, what we do is we keep track of the last time we sent an update, we just increment it by the period. So instead of the pattern I just showed you, I'll draw a second diagram. Each time it increments, it actually goes from the previous time, and you end up getting more updates. It evens itself out. So you end up with actually getting 40 a second. Even if your frames are kind of inconsistent, let's say your computer is not very powerful, or you're playing, Crisis or whatever game these days lights your computer on fire. So that is why I do it this way. The downside of this way to do it is that if you forget to set last sent update time, when you switch to the whatever state you're in where you start sending updates, if you just set it at 0.0, the first time it comes in here and says, hey, what's the time? Oh, it's 37 seconds. And then so it sends an update and increments it from 0.0 to 0.1. And then the very next frame it says, hey, 37 is still more than 0.1. And it tries to send 370 updates in the first 370 frames, which is not what you want, and immediately causes errors because it's trying to send way too much data. So you have to make sure to actually set this to time when you get into the state. You'll notice that is when you get into the ship, I set it to time. The bug would be if there was another way to get into the state, something that made it stop sending updates for a little while, and then when you got back into that state, it sent too many updates. That's not true here. There's only one place where in-ship gets set to true, which is right here, and that is the sole condition in tick to get into here. So it should be fine. I'm actually curious where this came from, if we can reproduce it. One of my coworkers said that he'd ran into that issue. All right, so the laser, great. Well, that's already there, it's new. Now let's look at this part. This is when you're not in the ship. What does it do to show you the other person's ship? You notice that this old one was really simple. That's great. We can probably just copy this over. But first copy it over and compare. And that is, what else do we need to do in here? I feel like there was one more thing I said I would look at. It was in the server script. This guy right here. We'll get back to that. Let's make a note. Clean up laser shootery. We're going to have to do something here as well, I think. Which is, let's see. Laser ability execute event. We're going to do a double check on this because this will fire when you are not in the ship. Like abilities are replicated entirely. When an ability is activated, all the client and the server know about it. And I might assume that you were in the ship when you may not be. I don't see any cases checks for local player here, and I expect that some of these, yes, like current view quaternion is not updated at all if you're not in the ship. So it would just be identity, and your lasers would shoot. You'd probably see other people's lasers shoot in the very wrong direction. We're going to need to look at the server function here, and copy some of it over, or make it some more logic, and check if the ability owner is local player. Let's make a note of that too. Hard-coded numbers and other client shooting. So down here, we just copied this logic over, which was the old logic and looked pretty well. And then our new logic was to get the speed, was to actually use the spaceships transform, which is, we stopped doing that. And then try the position. And then get this lurch. Man, we can just delete that entire thing. All right. Well, okay. Now I delete this, save that, and we delete this other ship entirely out of my hierarchy, I think. I don't want these scripts to be running. So we'll hit play. Script errors, okay. Aha! We did not set our properties as networked. Great. No property networking, no property networking, no property networking. There's an unfortunate bug where these are not orange when this is not a template. They should be orange to make it obvious. But in the meantime, shoot lasers. I can fly. Admittedly, single player preview is a subset of, a small subset of how you want to control this or test this. I can set my thrusters to high and low and off. Hopefully, or ideally, you'd have a UI that the local player sees, and you want it to, the way you'd build that is that you attach it to the camera itself so that it's not ever offset by frames or anything like that. It's just exactly fixed on your screen and has, your HUD built in, that sort of thing. But I believe my coworker already had some of that going, so we'll let him handle that himself. It's not any, it doesn't require any trickery with the spaceship itself. All right, so then which one did I just update? That's the question. But if I delete one of them, it'll complain. If I delete the other one, it'll tell me, are you sure that's permanent? And I say sure, because I can get it out of community content again if I really want to. Okay. So what are we doing? We gotta ship, we're testing multiplayer, of course. Very important. Let's get the client here. Where did the player just go? In the ship. All right. I'll report that one. Ah, yes. Let's note that. Move laser projectile forward. Ideally, your ship would actually have, you know, gun-looking things on it, but in this case, you see in the other clients feed the projectiles spawn pretty far back. That's because they made the projectiles very large and they're center anchored, pivoted. All right, so if I look around, it appears to be working. If I roll, it looks relatively smooth. Sometimes it's hard to tell when the client that you're watching is not in focus, so it has lower frame rate. If I fly around, appears to move. It's kind of smooth. If you watched yesterday, it was really not smooth when it was wrong. And if I switch views while I'm flying at constant speed, it looks all right. Shooting lasers all over the place. All right. And I crash into the ground. So it seems to be working. I'm glad that was, I expected that to be a lot worse. By the way, please let me know if my audio bounces out of whack. I got a new microphone today. I didn't do a test with it other than just, you know, listening back to myself and saying, yeah, I can hear myself. All right, so let's go back to those scripts and add some new features to this. We return to server context model. Got it, done. Hard-coded numbers, that's probably the last thing we should fix. Other client shooting. You know, for not having done that yet, we just tested it and it looks surprisingly good. I'm actually kind of confused why they were going the right direction. Oh, I see. Okay, so this quantity that was uninitialized was only used for the offset. And so they were probably being offset in the wrong way. Maybe one of the lasers was going on the front of the ship and one on the back or that sort of thing, but it's hard to tell when you're flying that far away. We could, as I could show you that by a manual test, but that's not important. We should fix it instead. All right, so what parts of this, the offsets are the same. The ship knows, basically the ship just keeps track of these offsets and just knows which one it's using. And it alternates forever. It doesn't care who's in it. If you got out and someone else got in, and you fired the left one last, they would fire the right one next. If no one was in it and somehow you had it firing, it would just keep alternating. Great. That'll be the same on every client and server, and it'll match. It won't match. I say that, then yes, I can bump up the font size. I also did not have a good sense of that. Let me know if that's enough. All right, so the problem with this is that if you join a game in progress and someone else has already fired a bunch of lasers, you might have a 50% chance to be on the wrong side, and then yours is just never going to match. Every time they fire a laser, they're going to fire on the right, you're going to see it on the left. And the server is always up, so the server should match the person shooting the, unless they joined in progress too. So they see a left laser and the server sees a right laser. All right, we'll think about that in a minute. We will call this offset index replication. I wonder if I can fire any information with the ability. Let me think about that one. What's on my mind? Ability. Nope, that's not what I want. I want core API. This guy. This is like literally the page I have open all the time. It should, yeah. Activate, interrupt, current phase. So the target data you can set, but this is hit or miss and has a lot of caveats with it. Position, direction. We found Right. So trying to set this didn't seem to work correctly in this configuration. We had to pick a very specific configuration to get this part to work at all. And then we couldn't, this aim direction doesn't include the rotation, which is why we need the roll. Okay, we can't get any information with this. We'll have to find a way to increment a shot count or something like that. I'm trying to avoid having to change a number. White mode for Sublime. I don't know if I've ever done that. Would that be more readable? Sublime just defaults this way. Color scheme. Ah, that is. I would like to be able to toggle it without an open the menu every time. All right. Oh, for the docs, yes. Of course. Yeah. Don't judge me. All right, so I'm trying to find a way to solve that problem. We'll get to it in a minute. Where I don't have to send a network property over and over and over again. I can just have a single property that it kind of knows somehow which shot this is or something like that. I'll have to think about it more. That might not be possible. All right, target data. So we're basically saying which of this matters that you are the pilot or not. We're taking the abilities target data. Gun position takes the target data. So this is all from the gun. I did this to try to match, and then the current returning, that's the thing we need to fix. And then you spawn the thing at the gun position, you give it gun forward. Okay, we almost solved this. It's just this value here. So what did the server do? It doesn't have quick returning, it has last rotation. So we need the same exact thing. When we get a network update here, we need to set a property called last rotation. Current offset. And yep, right at the bottom here. Oh, I changed the font size again, sorry. I'm going to, because this line's really long, I'm going to set this out to a variable. That, saved out to that variable right there. I'm making another one and then setting this to another one. Very convenient. All right, and so yes, okay. So we're basically just going to make this an if statement. It's kind of annoying, but we can do it. If ability.owner equals little player, then else end. Okay, this is a mess. We're gonna fix it. Then gun position equals gun position plus that. That's going to equal gun position plus rotation times offset. Okay. That should fix other client shooting. Let's test it. We need two clients to test this, of course. We're going to take one of these. That. So the trick should be the laser should appear to spot under the right spots. Even if I roll the ship, all right, that appears to be working. I'm actually, for comparison, I'm going to show you what it looks like when it doesn't work. If we just how can I count these lines out? If all right, the old duplicate a line and change what it does. If true, I hope it lets me do that. So just always do the old logic. This might be, if it doesn't like that, it might script error on the clients and I won't be able to tell. All right, so that looks okay, but if I roll, you notice that they're not rolling with me on the other view. And if I look at, yeah, see how one of them's coming, like they're both coming through the tip because one's coming in front, one's coming behind. let's fix that script up. Back to how it was. Just erase the line. All right. Move laser projectile forward. Hey, that's not even scripting. I can do that. Laser projectile. Yep. It is nice and centered. That's not what we want. Ooh, it is gone. I don't know where that just went. All right. Is there a cylinder? There's just a cylinder bottom of the line, which is probably what we want for the future, just so we can like, yeah, there we go. Oof. All right, perfect. So we can change its size and that sort of thing without having to drag it around. We'll test that in a second. That's simple enough change. Hard-coded numbers. What are you saying? Okay, you probably want projectile speed on the root. The difference back down to 8, I think, is a safe number. I actually don't remember. There's a speed or an update rate at which you start getting warnings, and it might only be for certain functions, but I don't want warnings because then people assume something's wrong. And it's often for things that are not sending updates constantly, which this is. I think when I set this up originally, I set it to 5, which is probably a reasonable number if your game might never send other events, you know, a kill event or that sort of thing. It's only for client to server. There are no server to client events here. Projectile speed, what was the value I had in here? 10,000. Well, let's make it a little faster. That's a lot faster. All right, and 5 projectile speed in here. We're going to change that line a little bit. We're going to put it here. And then put it in the same place here. In both cases, just replace that 10,000. So this is don't fall, and there's no direction to fall anyway. And I don't think anything else here would need to be, like, I think loop continuous is actually just a fine approach to a projectile. The projectile template itself has a lifespan of 20 seconds, which for a relatively big space game, hopefully that keeps the output count reasonable without you feeling like you can't shoot things that are far away. And I think that move continuous is just all we need. If you put some logic on the projectile itself or on the ships checking projectiles, I think that they don't need to do anything fancy in a spiral or shoot effects, and I guess you can put that on themselves. You don't need to worry about anything here. I don't think there's anything else that I want to change. Nope. Okay. Get rid of that guy. Offset index replication. Let us think about this. So every client and the server all need to care to know which projectile we're firing. Firing projectile is pretty fast to the point where it might, you might have replication issues, right? You might. It's a very cheap solution to this problem. Very often, when solving problems, the design solution is a lot cheaper than the engineering solution, which I'll talk about in a second here. But basically, if I just kept a count as a networked property, every time the client fires, it says, hey, I'm firing number 7, and then the server got that and said, okay, we know it's 7, and then replicate back to the clients. If I don't use that, it's that value itself as the thing that triggers the ability, then because you fire fast enough, you might get out of sync, and in which case it just has the same problem anyway. Maybe the clients are one behind, and then there is no worse. I guess it's no better. It's even definitely worse. The cheap design solution, and what I mean by that is one of the most important lessons I learned when I first started working in the games industry was that if you just blindly take what the other person's asking for, if you're working with someone in a different discipline, as what they want and try to solve that problem directly, that is often a pretty poor approach because they're often telling you the thing that they think would solve their problem and not the problem they have. When a designer comes to you and says, hey, I need my rocket launcher to home onto a target. And actually, let me think, what was the specific problem I had? Okay, this is a real case from long ago when I worked at Respawn. There was a feature that was already in the game, it was a Titanfall, that when you got fired at, it would, from someone not on your screen, it would pop up a little like radar looking thing, like a literal render as if you were looking at them on your screen in a little circle, and say, hey, someone's shooting at you. Here's the person, and it would kind of do the thing that like a waypoint marker does, where if they're generally on the right-ish, it would show up on the right of your screen. If on the left-ish, show up on the left of your screen. You know, kind of pan around so you can turn your camera towards that thing, and you find the person who's shooting at you. And the problem they had was that if a person fired a rocket at you, it wouldn't show that until you actually got hit or it went near you, and the rocket was kind of slow. And by that point, they might have moved. And so, okay, sure, you just show them where they are now because whatever, it's a game, you don't need to know where they were. Except they could just not be in view at all. They could have fired a rocket and then run around behind a wall or died or something. And then what does it show you? Where they spawned? A wall? That's nonsense. And I spent a lot of time, way too much time, trying to figure out how to make this work as is. I tried to, show a ghost image of a player, talked about that sort of thing, like drawing a dotted line or keeping and how to even implement in code. Do I keep the data on the rocket itself? What if the player leaves? That sort of thing. And I don't actually remember how this one problem got solved, except for that it was a very complex thing that we spent a lot of time thinking about that didn't matter at all. The actual solution is, or the real approach here is, what does the designer want? What are they trying to do? They're trying to give the player the information of who's shooting at them. If they're firing a rocket, maybe you don't care. Maybe just disable it for the rocket launcher. In this case, we want our lasers to look cool. We want to do a reasonable amount of DPS. Why don't we shoot both lasers every time instead of trying to alternate? It's pretty cool. You can make them do half damage. Maybe later we'll worry about that feature, but it'll be pretty cheap. Maybe we can make them fire half as fast. How about that? We can just take this. I was going to say, if I fire both of them all the time at the same rate, we're going to start having network problems. We're already firing a lot of projectiles. Actually, yeah. We don't have a ton of network problems here, right? Because the projectiles themselves are all client and server only, so they're not doing any networking at all. It's the ability itself that's triggering the fire. Actually, in that case, since the ability is doing the fire, it doesn't matter if we fire 2 projectiles. We can shoot like 100 projectiles. That's a super cool strengthless spaceship that could make this really crazy bullet hell without breaking core. Great. All right, we're just going to fire both of them. Perfect. So we're just going to take gun offset index, just remove it. Gun offsets, perfect. We're going to remove gun offset index over here too. Actually, let's do the gun script first. Gun offset index, where is it used? Right here, perfect. Nowhere else. Don't need it. Bam. All right. So the target data is the same. That's fine. Then we want to iterate. Let's actually pull that back so I can get that guy right there. Yes. I'm going to leave this here because I'm going to reference it again in a second. Oops. We don't care about the index offset in. Oh, I don't. Okay, where is gun offsets? And all the way down here, we're doing the rest of the function multiple times. All right, so this is a table. It's kept as an array. The keys are integers. We don't care what they are. It's just care about where the offsets are. For each offset, we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to add a new variable. We could, we could just copy this in here rather than make a new variable. Yeah, they all start at the same spot. These getters aren't any more expensive than making a variable in Lua. It's just reading some data out of code, giving it back to you. The data's already there. All right, so we get the gun position. We add the offset. We get the forward, which I can pull this out of the loop because it has not changed between shots. We spawn that. So I had this localized, right? It was left and right, and kind of cool. We'll see how this sounds. If we're firing both at the same time, firing 2 copies of this, still not very expensive. Maybe it'll be overwhelming. Maybe we should just fire one and not localize it. Worry about that later. Quaternion, forward, gun forward. All right, that doesn't change either. Don't need to put it in the loop. Spawn projectile and make it move. My approach to very long lines, some different programmers take different approaches to this. Some people put a line break in the middle and try to line up nicely. Sometimes they have everything line up exactly with the parentheses over here. I've seen people put a huge list here or try to have an indented one. I really don't like these because they're kind of inconsistent and they don't fit the style of other things, and sometimes it's unclear if it's indented a little bit, or if it's indented like a non-multiple of tabs, what is this even? And if it's indented like one tab, it's is this a control statement? Not really. And then you're if it's a function definition, if you start with function, you have a bunch of different properties, and then your curly braces in C++, I don't like it. I like just declaring more variables and being clear with what I'm doing. If I have one line that's super long, what am I doing? Why is it so long? So put this into a table, put it in here. Great. Composition, Quaternion. All right, so this should just fire both edges every time. We're gonna get rid of this, and we're gonna have to do the same thing on the server, but we can test it in single player because the client is what we need. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, great. Firing lots of projectiles. You could really go crazy with this. I am glad that it occurred to me that this does not get more expensive, or not much more expensive when you have a lot more projectiles. You can make ships that shoot lasers sideways and forward, backward. Alright, and then on the server, we're just going to copy over this block rather than trying to reference back and forth. I could set up Sublime to have 2 columns. I like having the hierarchy in the background. And for the sake of streaming, I'm on a lower resolution and higher text size. People who have seen my computer at work would know that it's hard to read what I'm doing. So this is basically the same function, right? Let's see. That's not there anymore. We've got target data. Quaternion's the same. So we don't have this line. We just have the second line. And then we're not spawning the sound effects either. Otherwise, I believe it is the same. We can actually test this in single player preview pretty easily. Since we don't need that, there's only one case now. We can just put it in the same line, get rid of all this. Okay. I believe that we have fixed this problem. For the client, similar to server. Oh, damn, we just did that. Great. The same thing twice here. 35. 35. Yep. I sure added an extra plus. Oops, I meant to pause. Okay. So the trick here, the reason I'm paused, is you see that each laser is double. That one's twice, this one's twice. When you are... Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I was supposed to close the window. When you are rolling, the server's a little bit behind. I talked about this earlier, because the roll is not transmitted in the ability. And we're just using the last update we got, and so it's a little bit off, and I figured for gameplay this is good enough. This shows me that the server is also firing 2 projectiles and they're also the same, right? If we go up here, I wasn't rolling for that one. I was right on. You can see a little bit, there's 2 there and 2 here. Okay, great. So it's working. The server's firing the exact same ones the client is. Make lasers do damage. That seems like the whole point of this experience. For one, I'm going to update template from this. We haven't done that in a long time, and duplicate it so we can shoot each other. Ah, you see what I did. It doesn't come up because the server representation doesn't do anything, but it is offset. Let's de-instance this one. And let's put some stuff in. Well, that's okay. Back on top. Great. Update that. Perfect. I just moved it from the one to the other without moving it back. And let's put these guys up here. I don't really care about. Okay. So I have 2 spaceships. My collision code, by the way, I could improve some. We just left it there so you can't go through the ground and look ridiculous. But it actually just collides with the very center of the ship where you are, and nothing else. So you're like an infinitesimally small point. Because we're using raycasts, it would be harder to do like sphere collision stuff. Is not really exposed to Lua and more complex, a lot more complex. For now, it's probably fine. We'll worry about it later. If the game ends up having only a couple of their objects, like other ships, you can do collision manually through math. If you're doing client sphere-to-sphere collision, and math is very simple. Just get the offset of position and see if it's bigger than the radius twice, or smaller. Okay. So dynamic lasers do damage. Currently, lasers do nothing, except for look cool. So this is completely server side. Well, no, this is server and client side. On the client, whether or not you're the one shooting them, if they hit another ship, they should be destroyed and play a visual and maybe audio. Our lasers are already making sounds. Maybe explosions make sounds. I'm not I'm not going to be the physicist here and yell at people for how this works. For the server, don't play the visuals or audio, but do damage, right? And presumably you can just use player health. That's already a built-in system. Doesn't matter if the player's not actually in the ship. When you die and respawn, you'll come back to the ground without a ship and without being visible. We'll fix that later. So how do we tell if projectile collided? Because the projectile is a it's just template respawning and moving. It's just geometry. Okay. So there's a couple ways to do this. A couple more cleaner than others, depending on how much you want to do. I think the first thing we want to do is use trigger static mesh collision. It works pretty well. I did some tests yesterday on stream. I was very happy with how good the trigger collision worked. Previously, just most out of coincidence and unfamiliarity, I had used trigger collision almost entirely with players. Yesterday, I did a bunch of tests. Triggers collide with triggers really well. Triggers collide with static meshes really well. Collide some other things. And better than that, they work in different contexts in the ways that almost always make sense. A server context can collide with server things and network things. I guess network things. Maybe we need this the other way around. We'll figure this out. The catch was that the thing in a server context doesn't have collision, and so it couldn't collide with the trigger. And since we spawned the projectiles in this way, they might have this problem. That is okay. This is solvable in manual. Like I was talking about, running our collision code. It's not even that complex, right? The lasers are long cylinders. The ships are spherical-ish. How complex do you want your hitboxes to be? Who knows? I mean, like, if I were to put a trigger in here, we're going to try this at least. Create trigger. That's the instance. I'll put a trigger in here instead of a cube. Oop. Where'd you go? And let's get rid of the cube. Don't need it. Alright, so I have a trigger in here. And I'm going to have it print out whenever it hits anything. Let's rename these. Where is this used? The client script? Yeah, I want to change the names of these so it's more clear. Now I have two triggers. Pilot trigger? Like get in, enter, equip, nope. And collision trigger. Realistically, if you want a collision trigger, you want to match the ship pretty well. You're not going to we're not going to do static mesh collision, we're not doing physics objects, which is something that we could have done if we used projectiles, but they didn't work. So that's where we are. We could have you could use a bunch of triggers. You could try to model your ship pretty closely, especially if you have a real big ship with holes in it. You could have 20 different triggers that kind of line up with it. But if the triggers work, then sure, you can do that. If they don't, we can just do some math and assume it's a sphere, and that'll be pretty close. I'm going to drag this smaller so it matches the radius-ish, and then I'm going to drag it longer. And then move it forward one. That looks basically like a ship, right? Maybe we want like 2.6. How close is that? Yeah, okay, perfect. So we're going to drag this into here. Oh, it was already there. And so this one cares about the collision trigger. After the laser ability? Yeah, sure. And the client one cares about the pilot trigger. It's one of my pet peeves. The properties have got to match the... It doesn't have to match the name of the object. If it's like SFX and the object is actually the name of like these guys. But I guess the pet peeve is the other side of this. Excuse me. These should match. This and this gotta match. If they don't match, I can't follow your scripts. Oh, okay, I'm just a little bit sad about it. Right, so in the client script that we're looking at, I changed the name of trigger to pilot trigger. And unfortunately, we don't have nice tools here that trigger, get out of here. It might just be there. Yep, easy, okay. There are tools in, Visual Studio or whatever that you just rename and it brings a little context menu and does it for you. So we don't care about that. Server script, collision trigger. What we're gonna do for now is just tell it, or print out a statement whenever we get a collision and see if we collide with the projectiles. If we don't, then we're gonna go to the other approach immediately because I suspect that a server context static mesh may not collide with anything ever. Actually, no, we're not going to go straight to the approach. We're going to test one more thing. We might be able to put a trigger on the projectile itself as like the impact trigger, and those might collide, but I'm pretty sure they will. And then we can put a script on the projectile that actually sets its properties if we wanted that. We could say, hey, you know, here's where I collide, here's how much damage I do, or what the explosions I do when I collide with things, that sort of thing. It seems like a reasonable pattern. It's not exactly the same pattern that a lot of other things take, like the guns have the explosion on the gun itself, but it's an easy way to adjust how the weapon works without having to just have a big, block of custom properties here, which admittedly some of my scripts have blocks of custom properties. That's not what I want. This guy. Collision trigger. Okay. So the first check. We're put it in the middle. I like my custom events last. Doesn't really matter. Or begin overlap event. Notice I always name my functions the same thing. I'm going to be in lots of trouble when I have multiple triggers with multiple overlap events in the same script. Trigger, other, and print. String out format. Collided with us. So I want to know exactly what collided with us. Is it the static mesh or the projectile or the root of the projectile template? So we'll give it all three parts. Type. Yeah, okay. So there are two type functions. If you're not familiar with, there is I think it's literally just called type. It's a Lua function. It tells you what Lua type you've got. It could be a number, a float, a string, a table, a function, and a user data, which is anything else that your system work uses. So every core type is going to tell you user data. If it's a core type, then it has a .type property that gives you exactly these names in the table of contents, capitalization and all. And but if the things that are not core types don't have this property. There's been a function we've written a handful of times. If I write a game, I'll put it in a shared library type thing, which is just check the Lua type if it's user data, get the other type, and just return either one. All right, so let's just see what we collide with here. The ship should know about collisions even though I'm not in it. Hey, nil values. Ship server 5. Collision trigger. Really? That kind of looks like a thing. Script, get custom property, collision. I kind of feel like hierarchy, if it's there. Is it unhappy that it got pulled out of the hierarchy? That doesn't make sense. I have no idea that's erroring. And client 4 is... Ah, okay, so that one I messed up. Did I misspell this when I renamed it? Collision trigger. Well, we will stop. Save, update both, play. Both of them still? I'm skeptical. Did the client script not change the name of the property? Pilot trigger. What? Did I misspell get custom property or something? That's the same. Do you see what's going on? I didn't update the template. The scripts in this template are complaining, not the scripts in this template. That is the cost of having two of them. All right. Players reach me player, collide with us. Perfect. Absolutely nothing. All right, so that did not work. What we're gonna do is try to add a trigger to this. Let's pull you out of the ground. Let's get a capsule trigger that basically exactly lines up with it. Instance, new trigger, capsule. This is where are you? Gonna rotate that way, I think, and then way over here. And then we're gonna take the scale from this guy and put it on this guy. Now it roughly matches. And the rotation is... that ain't right. Gimbal lock is a hell of a thing. I don't know. It bugs me. Alright, so the trigger doesn't have a... I guess we're having the offset problem one way or the other. Maybe we should... maybe we should put the trigger back to the other shape. Nah, whatever. Or the cylinder, and then move them together. Yeah, I'll do that. That's fine. So now they line up. I'll put them in the group. Move the group. How long is this thing? 10 meters. So we want to move this 500. All right, so grab that to the end. Great. So the trigger does nothing at all, but it should hopefully collide. No print that time. Questionable. Ah, I didn't actually run into it before. Yeah, look at that. All right, perfect. So we got ships. They know when projectiles hit each other. What we need is to figure out where to put the logic that actually does the damage. I said we just talked a while about putting that on the projectile itself, and trying to put that logic that way with the impact, collision, and all that sort of thing. The catch with this projectile is an interesting, funny behavior here. All right, so the projectile is being spawned by a client context script or a server context script, but not both, or not any network scripts. So the projectile should not be in a client context. I set this up originally, didn't think about it. In multiplayer, this is not there at all for the server. It spawns the client context and nothing in it. That's bad. So we need this to just be... This is an interesting use case. We need to not have the client context. So I'm going to take that name down here. I kind of want a group inside of a group, actually. Let's let's do that. Let's name this back to group. Let's put this in here. So 2 groups. Put this one inside that one, and this one. I gotta update projectile template so it knows what they are. Okay. So now we've got the exact same projectile, only the root is a group. You can spawn a thing that is not networked in a client script or a server script, and they're going to spawn the same thing. You hopefully will see twice as many collisions in a second when I test this. So it's 2 each time. Is there a way to actually hit it with both lasers at once? Oh no. Yep, so it's printing out 4 lines per thing. And it's printing out the IDs there. You see 4 different IDs because you've got the left and the right server and the client, 4 different objects. Oh, hey, Daddy-O, thank you. Daddy-O 66. I saw that Doom Eternal had 666.6k viewers today or something. Thought that was great. And you just remind me of that. Alright, so we need these triggers to do damage, or the collisions to do damage. I think, let's say, the few ways to do this, I talked about putting it on the projectile itself. The thing it needs to do, things it needs to do. On the client, it needs to destroy itself, spawn VFX, spawn SFX. On the server, it needs to destroy itself and do damage. And we don't want either one to assume the structure of the other too hard, like to look at the name of the trigger or something like that. That's not right. We want a script to actually set some user data on it to like really tag it. Hey, this is my collision box. I think I will do that here. Instead of having a begin overlap event. Well, no, maybe we should say that right, because the script knows who's in it. I hope. Maybe it doesn't. Enter ship player. Because it knows who's the owner. I could say it stores off to a variable. So the ship knows who's in it. The projectile doesn't know who's in it and who to damage. So the ship has to handle the damage itself. So what I will do is the projectile itself will handle the, will set a property on itself and say, hey, I'm a projectile, then I do this much damage. Maybe it'll, maybe I can call a shared script with require and register itself. Say, I'm a projectile, here's what I'm doing. Or I can just set some user data. User data is probably simpler here. Doesn't deal with adding and removing a lot of entries to a table. It can get expensive eventually. Earlier on, I wrote a script that had hundreds of megabytes of table, and it turned out it caused some real problems. And then this script here will say, hey, when we overlap something, does it have this user data field? If not, ignore it. It might be a player, it might be another ship, it could be anything. If it does, then we're assuming it's trying to damage us. And then we'll handle that. So the projectile itself is going to have a single script called laser projectile static. And it's client and server. It's not shared so much as, it is kind of shared. Let's call it shared. Well, no. My convention for shared is it's a script that is used in multiple places, and this is not. It's used in the same place. It just happens to incidentally do client and server. We'll call it static. A script in a static context would run in client server, and I'd call it the same thing, and this is kind of similar to that. All right, so we'll put it in here. It cares about a bunch of things. It cares about the projectile itself, so it can destroy it. We're gonna have to do more user data stuff here rather than what I was talking about, because if I try to play this, like the projectile doesn't know what it hit either. You could argue that if it hits anything at all, it should explode. Like if it hits the ground, then it should still explode, right? Because that's something. That's probably true. Let's try that out. So it needs the trigger, projectile, and then here we need SFX and VFX. Impact SFX, impact VFX. You know what? We're just gonna put those in the same template and call it impact FX. That seems fine. It needs to destroy itself, needs to play the things, needs to do damage. That would be on here too. Flipped damage. You could have it care what it hit. Like you could have the lasers if they hit a player, for instance. Like, I don't know, if your ship where you're running around, or game where you're running a spaceship and shooting lasers at players that you want them to take damage to. It's getting complicated. Well, I think with something this complex and this kind of custom made, it's very hard to handle all the cases where someone might try to use it. And rather than trying to envision every possible case and make sure we handle it, we just do the common cases and someone shows up and says, hey, I'm trying to use your template. I mean, I'm happy to answer questions all the time, right? Someone comes up to me and says, messages me on Discord and says, hey, I'm trying to use your template, but it doesn't work because I'm trying to do this funny thing. And then I'll say, great, well, let me help you. Here's how we change it. I would say that for some things that I have written, like the components right in here, that I really tried very hard to consider every possibility, not only does it not actually do that, for some of these things I could contrive scenarios where they wouldn't work very well, but even then it took so long compared to this other stuff to write those, because I'm considering everything, trying to be very robust. What if players want to spawn these at runtime? What if they want to leave and then rejoin? What if they want to you know, have players on 4 different teams, and only one of the teams has players at a time, and that changes, you know, all sorts of weird scenarios. All right, so in our case, just damage. It goes to a ship. You shoot ships because you're in a spaceship, and you're all in spaceships, right? Besides, if you're shooting lasers at a human, how many shots does it take to kill them? It's 1. These lasers are way bigger than a human. Laser projectile. Okay, so we've now got a new script to write. Get our custom properties. Get our root custom properties. Fix them up a little bit. Laser projectile. Trigger. I never used caps lock until I did a lot of programming as an adult and said, man, that's really, really helpful. And that guy. All right. So all this thing does is set up some user data on itself so that the when it collides, I guess the user data needs to be able to trigger, strangely enough, right? Because that's the thing that the ship knows it collided with. And the trigger doesn't have a reference back. Like, I could put the user data somewhere else and then have a trigger reference to it, but that's just more indirection. I'll just put the user data in the trigger and just say, hey, we hit this trigger with this properties. Okay, do things. Local projectile data dot. We don't need a trigger. We need impact effects equals. I'm going to call the property of actually, this should be first for what it's worth, but so the property of actually colliding with ships. Collides with spaceships. Sure, why not? And then trigger dot. We're gonna see if this works. This is hoisted by my own petard. So there are 2 different variables: client user data and server user data, because it was when they were both called user data, but they still were not actually replicated and not the same data. It was a very common source of confusion. The players creators would think that you could access the one from the other, and it wouldn't work. It just, your stuff would not be there. So I argued that we should split them apart. I think it was a good decision, but right here, right now exactly, that is not what I need. I'm hoping this works. Client only basically tells you about the state in the hierarchy. It doesn't say, am I running on the client? We've talked about adding that. It would be useful. But it's, am I actually a client only in client context? And for instance, in a static context, you can't do this thing I'm trying to do because the script is not client only. It's in a static context, which I believe actually has its own function. But in our case here, incidentally, we're responding some in client context, some in server context. I think this will work. Client, that's what I wanted. User data equals projectile data. Else, same thing with server user data. All right, so it needs to destroy itself. Obvious. In fact, we're going to handle the destruction in here in the script because we want to be able to collide with things like players in the ground. You never want your lasers to just go through stuff. If they collide with anything at all, they should stop. And any static or networked geo will collide with triggers in either context, I believe. We're going to find out. So then the client part of the spaceship is going to read this guy and say, hey, we should spawn one of those. The server part's going to read this and say, hey, we should spawn one of those. You could argue that I shouldn't put all the data when I only need one of those for each half. I don't think it matters. It's not like a core object reference that'll fail. It's like the impact effects is a template that the server could spawn, it just won't do anything. Damages the field the client could read and print to your screen, but we might print it to your screen. Who knows? That actually sounds sweet. We don't have health bars to do things. Okay. What damage numbers? Health bars. Alright, so this just sets that, and then I would, in my script organization, I would call this initializing, this whole block here. So begin overlap happens before that. trigger other. This is interesting. We get to do some really cheap stuff because there's a split. This is a really nice not work with networked objects for once. Trigger and overlap event. Okay. And we're going to do a task.wait. And then laser projectile destroy. Alright, so we do a single task.wait to give the ship that we hit, if we hit a ship, a chance to run their scripts. That's all it takes. This is what I was saying about it being networked. It only takes one frame because you're guaranteed that in one frame every script ran. And because these are not networked, then everything's going to happen. If we're not guaranteed which order they run in, which is why we have to wait at all. If we just hit and destroy it immediately, then the other one would run and have an object that's not there and would fall apart. We need this user data. The user data would be gone. One frame should be enough. Okay. So then the client script. The client script doesn't have the collision trigger. How interesting. We're at the server script first. We could spawn the VFX here. But the client script isn't gonna. This might work. We're gonna try this. I don't think that far forward. The server version is going to collide with this collision trigger, right? It's not going to collide with any of the client stuff. The client version might just collide with the geo. That's almost good. We can play the effect when it collides with the geo, all that, except for the problem here. We probably have to put a trigger in here, is that those don't match. So if you graze the ship at the right angle, or the collision trigger isn't exactly the right shape, your thing's going to explode and not do damage. Or it's going to do damage, and on your view, it's going to keep going. That's actually pretty bad. We'll fix that up in a minute. We'll turn off the collision on all this stuff. I believe the collision setting actually still affects this. I hope so. If not, we'll do some checks. And so the server version, previously we were just printing a thing. Instead, if other dot server user data dot, what did we call that? Collides with spaceships. Then, alright, everything has server user data. That's guaranteed. And it's a table, so this is not going to error. It's not going to say we're indexing nil. But this could be false. If it's true, it's got to be one of these because that's the only way we're going to get this. So we know it's got a damage property on it. So we grab the damage property. In fact, we're just going to do this one line. Make it a damage object. And let's maybe store this off somewhere. Local pilot. That seems important. So right now there's no way to get out of the ship, so you get in and you're the pilot forever. So pilot, apply, damage. We should probably destroy the ship if the pilot dies, because otherwise we have a way to get out of the ship, right? So for now, this will be a little hacky. If pilot.is dead, I believe. Player is dead. Yep, true is dead. Great. Hopefully, apply damage kills them immediately. I have no reason to believe it doesn't. Alright, so pilot is dead. Then we want to destroy the ship, which we can do. The script will keep running. That will call undestroyed. It'll network itself eventually over here. It'll call undestroyed. It'll take care of everything. Then the scripts themselves will get destroyed as well, but here they'll run. One thing to check for, I hadn't actually rigorously thought about this, and this is the first place where we're destroying ships, is when you register event handlers, they kind of become disconnected from the script in a sense, in that they are registered to the object they are on. Like this becomes a member of spaceship. So if I destroy the script and then destroy the spaceship, it'll still call this function. So we have to say, what are these things on? That's the spaceship. That's the ability. It's a collision trigger. Great. Okay, these are all things that are attached to this ship, and so they'll be destroyed, and these we won't have to clean them up because they're just, the object itself is gone. I actually don't know with custom event handlers how that works. We're going to find out. It's possible that if we destroy a ship... yeah, okay, so these ones both check the ID, right? So they'll never match the ID again if you spawn a new ship. But it might just, if you play the game for a long time, it might get slower, like a very minor cost as it connects more and more handlers to these events for objects that aren't there anymore. It might actually retouch the object. I'll find out, I'm curious. For the rest of that, this is fine, I can destroy the ship. All right, the last thing I do, which is kind of the hack here, is when you get in the ship, on enter ship, will you set your visibility? I'm going to set it back so that this actually kind of works. We're probably going to be in the invisible box underground, but, you know, worry about that later. We don't have to do this or this because those are, the script's being destroyed, this object's being destroyed. Okay, so we should be able to shoot ship now. And the client side, let's write it and see that it explodes first, and then we'll worry about what it collides with at all. Actually, we can't do that. We could do that by putting it in here, but I don't want it. I don't want it in here, right? I want it on the ship itself, so we know we're colliding with the right thing. Nope, I lied. We want it in the projectile because that's ugly. Because the projectile needs to make an explosion to hit the ground or a player. Okay, so really what we're doing is splitting this logic around a lot. We're gonna take this, put it in here, and just get rid of the impact effects entirely. And in fact, I'm going to put this in one line because it got to the point where I feel like that's a little bit unwieldy. Okay. So on the server, you set the data we need for the ship. On the client, we actually don't need this at all. That's because we're going to do it in this object overlap function, right? So we're going to do this immediately. We'll respawn the FX and then just kill this. Perfect. Okay, world.spawn asset. Impact effects. Position equals question marks. So we began overlap with the trigger. That doesn't tell us where it collided, right? There's no hit data about this sort of thing. It's kind of surprising. Like, this is one of those things from the cloud. This has never come up before. I've never thought about this. I don't know why, but great. We'll see. Right here, oh, there. Yep, it just says it's overlapping. All right. So I mean, if you just want at the position of the laser itself, that's not going to be too bad, right? We kind of want it at the other end of the laser, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe when your laser is colliding with the capsule of a ship, or you're shooting a ship from the side, you want it to be at that collision point, which is almost always going to be the tip of the laser. The laser is moving very fast. You have to have a very precise movement for it to hit, the back of the laser to clip a ship or something, and you wouldn't even, are you even going to know that, right? In fact, we're gonna just take the position of the trigger. We're gonna move the trigger so it's on the tip of the laser because of that exact same thing I just said. It's not gonna collide at the back. All right, so now we spawn impact effects for client. If we're not client, we set some user data for the server script to do damage. All right, we should hook up those impact effects and take our trigger, which we'll pull these out of the group now that they're not gonna overlap exactly. Get that out of here, and the projectile's a mess. This guy now at 0.3 size. Let's put this up. Trigger, where are you? Let's move you all the way to the tip of the laser. That's where you collide. Oops. That's probably fine. Let's put off, keep it snapping. All right, so we need some effects. Explosion. Yeah, we got plenty of these. Bow. That's how lasers sound like from Hollywood. Let's add a /audio in here because now we found a simple VFX that'll work. Explosion creation and construction kit. Ooh, retro explosions. What is that? Oh, that is cool. All right. Well, that's not what we need. This is. I should mention our effects guys, audio and visual, are awesome. This is a ridiculous level of complexity. Look at how many options you have. There's 29 different options for explosion type, and then adding more pieces on top of it. I basically just pick runs at random and see what they sound like, and then try adjusting their pitch. We're gonna apply effects. That's very loud. So we want it to be short, for one thing, because we're shooting a lot of lasers. If you're hearing pow over and over and over again, it's going to be terrible. Some folding? Oh, for all these entries, yeah. Although you might not, I mean, if you're hitting a person with every laser, if you're just like right behind them, they're going to die quickly. Oh, it's silent? I may have found a bug, or maybe I think I might have seen a fix for that actually. Modern, small. Okay, I like that. If I pitch it up, it'll sound smaller and be faster. It's actually working. The apply effects checkbox might not work on this complex type. I might just have to try it, see how it is. Alright, whatever. We're just gonna leave it at that for now. Often you'd want to put these in a client context. I guess I can in case someone uses this for something else. In this case, it's being spawned from a client script, so it doesn't matter, but I need to put them into a template anyway, and they have to be in a group. You need to hear this a lot farther, right? Like extra zeros here. Because 360 meters, sure, okay. We'll put these in a client context. Oh, I don't know what I just did. That menu. So this was laser impact VFX. Or FX. And I probably offset things in a bad way. Yeah, they're totally not in the same place. Move you back. I pick the average. This one's the opposite place. Do I do anything to this effect? Nope, wrong one. This effect. That's pretty sweet for now. That's a really good default. Alright, there's projectile. Let's give our template. Drag it in. Let's make this thing do 5 damage. That sounds a bit wimpy, but your spaceship has a lot of health and it actually just has 100 health, so whatever. Template from that. So this guy knows how to impact itself. And if it hits server collision volume, it will do damage. We need to figure out, that's on our list, client side collision trigger. We need to make sure the client side matches the server. There is a catch with my, I'll add this to the list. My previous statement a while ago, yesterday, or an hour or two ago, was that your own ship does not line up with the server ship. Your own ship is ahead, and it's very snappy and feels good. The server ship matches what you see other client ships look like, pretty close, which is why if you're shooting lasers at someone and you see them hitting, they should also be hitting and actually doing damage. However, we need the sound when someone shoots you. We don't need the rest of that. I mean, I guess we need the projectile to not keep going. We want it to go away and make sound. And maybe an explosion if it hits like right in front of you or something, but I was kind of hoping it would always hit behind you so you couldn't see it, but you still want to hear it. I'm not sure what to do about that. I'll think about it. First, you're getting shot projectile impacts. We may have to fire an event or something. We might be able to do a A kind of a hack we could do here is when you take damage, assume you got hit by a laser, and then just play the sound. That sounds pretty weak compared to the rest of what I'm doing, but I will have to think about this more, and for now that might be a reasonable solution. You definitely want to know you're taking damage, not just have your health disappear for no reason. Alright, so for now, if I get in this ship, I get ship there. 4T7. It doesn't know who the pilot is. But, really? Oh, there's no pilot in that ship. You can shoot ships that have no pilots. Yeah, okay. Well, if you shoot a ship that has no pilot, then it does nothing. I could move the concept of the health to the ship, right? That's probably what you'd want to do if you had a game where you had a lot of ships sitting around in port or something. You'd be able to shoot them when they explode. Also, if the ship base is being destroyed, it should explode. We could put that in here somewhere. Whatever. For now, you have to have a pilot to take damage. Great. Come on. Got it. So I was kind of hoping they would explode, you know? Oops, let's go up here a little bit. Let us wait. Pause it and collapse all. I'm gonna wait 20 seconds for my hierarchy to collapse itself down and then fire and see if they appear. Seems simpler than trying to dig through the hierarchy and find the objects to destroy themselves. And I'm starting to believe that they don't kill themselves because I changed the root of the template and lost that property. Yep, sure did. Otherwise, the one on the ground would have killed itself. Okay. Okay, projectiles just went right through the ground. The client side triggers maybe didn't impact the ground, or maybe there's an error with the script. Ooh, we got one. Look at that. Sweet. That looks great. Okay, what are we script erroring? Static 13. It can't destroy itself anymore. Why not? Did something else destroy them? This didn't destroy the projectile. Did I... Trigger should be destroyed when I destroy the projectile. Maybe the task.wait tries to fire twice. Like I get another overlap with the same thing. That's possible. Like it fires this function, it calls in here, it yields. The next frame, before it actually destroys itself, it overlaps something else, another piece of geo. Because I fired a lot more lasers than I got errors, right? And then it comes in here again, spawns another explosion, hits this weight, yields, goes to the first one, destroys it, then the second one comes back and says, hey, where's this thing? It's not there at all. Okay, so we want to, the very first thing we want to do, let's see, one way to do this. Begin overlap handle. We can get the handle from this, and as soon as you trigger it once, that's it. We know it's gone. So, disconnect handle. All right. Let's see if that solves problem 1. I should really turn the rotation speed on this thing up. Sensitivity is very low. All right, problem solved. Do you think that we should set the rotation of this? Which is to say that the rings going out in the vertical plane look terribly wrong because that's the whole point of space. There's no up. Local rotation. Can I fit this in one line? Where did my white line go? Did I have a white line before? Oh, it got bigger. Haha! My text bigger. Got it. Parameters, is that what I called it before? Spawn parameters. Sure. Did I even spell it correctly? Yeah. Rotation equals laser projectile get world rotation. Okay. Perfect. So we've got, oops, not into the ship, away from the ship. The velocity-based drag, by the way, makes it very slow to stop to an actual halt. Uh-oh. All right, we're gonna wait for a second. We're gonna find it in the hierarchy and see if it actually has rotation, and then we're gonna see if the rotation actually impacts the visuals of the explosion. And if it doesn't, we're going to see if there's properties we could change. I bet our explosions don't have a lifespan either. Who did this? Who made this template? In fact, I can just look at any one of them right now. They sure do have rotations. Well, look at those rotations. Those look like very real rotations. All right, so effects, lifespan per seconds. That seems probably enough for our. So are we not hearing any sounds? Oh, we are, right? And then this guy, advanced settings, local space. That might do what we want. If I rotate this. So I gave it a rotation. Then go to the angle. If I go, yeah, hey, that totally works. Sweet. All right, sure. Don't need any of those. All right, why? So we've got the explosions. We have the sound effects, right? Now. What is it colliding with that doesn't collide with some things from behind? It's very confusing. Oh, I think the ships are too close together. I think the trigger starts actually past the ship. Oh no, you know what? I know exactly what's wrong. Okay. Whew. We're just building on this a whole bunch. Lots of lessons here. Triggers, check once a frame, see if they're overlapping things. When your trigger is that tiny little circle and your laser is moving really fast, it's very likely to skip over things, even entire spaceships. So this trigger needs to be as big as the cylinder is, at least. How fast did I say this thing moved? Let's see. That would be 15,000. All right, so that's 15,000 centimeters per second. And we are running at 10 frames a second on the surfer. So 15,000, here's my TI calculator, times 0.1 seconds, 1,500 or 15 meters. Our cylinder is 10 meters long. So we would have a 2/3 chance of hitting something on the server if we set it up this way. That means we're going to be hella long. I'm going to make it extra long, just in case. And I don't think it really matters if I put it forward or backward. I think this is, yeah, it's fine. Okay. So basically, we're hitting a case where the frame rate's actually going to matter, right? Collision will be detected slightly differently. We're just hoping that it lines up close enough that it's not very often that you see the miscase. The miscase is going to be pretty obvious. You're going to see an explosion and not do damage, or you're going to see a target lose health and a laser go through them without an explosion. So we want to minimize that absolutely. We'll hope this is pretty close, and we'll test it and see. If it's really bad, we'll look at other ways to solve this problem. So I'll make that trigger huge. That should solve one problem. Let's see if we can shoot the other ship from right behind right now. We cannot. At all? Did we just get a collision with the... I think we just had a projectile hit another projectile. Okay. I pause. How close are these explosions actually to the ship? Ah, that's a good reason to consider actually offsetting that a little bit. That looks pretty bad, right? Also, you may notice that this is not the right rotation. Okay, so we will fix both these problems. I'm going to leave this in pause so I can fix the rotation. What I'm going to do is going to grab one of the effects and figure out what rotation it actually needs. Let's go effects. This guy. Actually, let's unpause. Let's try to get as close as I can to right on an axis. Yeah. So that is vertical-ish. We want this guy. We want it to be this way instead. So rotating around blue. Which one is blue? Z, okay. So 9 degrees on Z. We're just going to try to multiply that in. It's going to be more. Rotation equals... So this is an example where I'm going to go to quaternions. I want to take a rotation that we already have and apply another rotation to it. So this is a little bit quaternion.new, this guy. Might be a transform function that can actually skip some lines here. Let's take a look. Transform. There is a transform position and direction, not rotation. Okay, because rotations are just multiplied to do that. Yep, okay. I said multiply two quaternions together. Can do. It's probably going to fit one line, though, especially since we have to cast it back to rotation. But no, we don't. That's right. Haha. I'm fairly certain that world.spawn asset was happy to take a quaternion. Yes, great. I bet you guys want this one bigger, too. Unfortunately, oh boy, my computer's having trouble. Not in the table of contents is really a bummer for this website. Yeah, leave it. If you make it too big, you can't see. All right, so this could be effect quaternion. And let's take that over there. So we need that guy times quaternion.new. I could define a rotation here. I could do one of the quaternion multiple constructors takes two vectors, which will work. I could actually put in the values. I would basically have to construct one and print it out to know what the values are supposed to be. It's probably 1001 or for 1000. I don't even know. It's probably something simple, but there's a lot of possibilities there. I'm just doing a 90-degree rotation around Z. So what turns X into Y, I believe, is what I want here. At least that's a guess. Could also do axis angle. That's even simpler. Yeah, let's do that. Vector 3.up 90. And so the possibilities are of how this could be wrong, first of all, is this could be the wrong direction. It could be the wrong axis. It could be we need to multiply in the opposite order. Quaternion multiplication is not commutative. But we're going to just do the old try and see, because that's how you debug rotations, honestly. Oh, so why does not hit the spaceship? I was also going to fix the impact locations. Okay, definitely not correct. See the explosions, the rings are going out at a upright down left angle. Because it's not... My instinct is to switch the order. I feel like they should be consistently wrong, but I'm not actually sure about that. So let us change our initial spaceship's positions a little bit, so that I can fire at this one more easily without having to fly around. Oops. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do is change the projectile itself. Right, so we were using the position of the projectile to see when we collided, and you were seeing that the VFX and SFX are on the client. The client runs at 60 hertz, so we didn't need the trigger nearly this big for the client. It can be a lot smaller, so we want to move it back. On the server, it doesn't really matter if it's forward or back. On the client, you want to average that it hits about the front of the laser. So we just want about there, I think. And then when you actually play the thing, wondering if we should actually put a group there. We're going to do that as a placeholder. At that right there. Call it effect position. Drag it in here. It goes here. And then this guy is not where the trigger is, it's where the effect position is. Great. Update that. All right. We are getting some explosions inside of it. There's invariably with this speed, we've got a little bit of variety. It's hard to even tell. Is there a ring in there? Where's the ring? I do not see it. Not you. We maybe want to pull that impact, like move the trigger a little bit further forward. If the explosion's a little bit outside of the ship, it's hard to tell. If the explosion's inside the ship, you can't see it. It looks really bad. So we want to bias that. If we set this to 0. I don't know where our rings went. After all that work, these things don't seem to be oriented anymore. Maybe the logic for the ring doesn't like it when you're at the same height as your target. And I didn't, like I'm literally exactly the same height as the target. There's some rings. They're definitely wrong. Look at that. I missed it. Arrgh. Boom. Alright, we'll keep playing with that. We've got 3 things we're trying to do here. One is take a projectile and move the collision forward a little bit. Maybe there would be enough to make sure it's not inside the ship. One is I'm going to get rid of the terrain and replace it with a flat plane. I think that the answer to the why can't I shoot the terrain is that collisions don't work with terrain. But I'm pretty sure I tested it yesterday and just forgot about it. It's kind of a bummer, but realistically in a spaceship game, you'd have a space station. A lot of times you'd have space stations, that sort of thing. In which case, whatever. You don't have terrain in the way. I just remove that. You'll see my invisible box in the ground. I'll go find a plane. The old default floor. Give it a very large scale. Maybe some nice grass texture. Boom. Whoops. Nah. Okay. Am I tall enough to switch? Yes. There we go. All right. So you see when I fire straight down, it goes through because I'm too close. We can solve that, actually. Let's do that before we fix the angle. All right. The problem is this script runs, and by the time it's running, we're already, like, the triggers, when it spawns the template, the trigger overlaps stuff. It immediately fires on begin overlap, nothing's connected. Then the script runs and says, hey, let's listen to this event. The event's already happened. Too late. We need to, in our initialization code, look for the other function on a trigger, which is overlapping. Get overlapping objects. So right when we do this, for object in pairs trigger overlapping objects, do are we already overlapping things? Note, this probably will make us blow ourselves up. Maybe it's good that our guns are off to the side. We'll try. This might be more bad than good. Might be that you're not that close to things in the space game. For each one, we assume we're getting overlap. So they're already overlapping. You can overlap again because we didn't get it the first time. Haha. Interesting. Oh, I see why this didn't work. Well, I see two reasons this didn't work. First reason, it's definitely hitting myself immediately, as expected. Second is my catch-all, or my catch to calling this twice was to disconnect the handle, but this doesn't care about the handle. Okay, so we're gonna change that to a different catch, and has collided. It's false. Where are we doing this? We say it's true. And then this whole function, if not, then. There's sort of a trade-off between if has collided, then return end, and then do the rest of the thing, or putting the whole function inside of an if. I don't like indenting everything, but I also don't like printing 4 lines when I could print 2 lines. It's pretty much the same. All right, so that'll get rid of the script errors. It still doesn't solve the problem that I'm shooting myself. It did get rid of the script errors. I lied. 30. 30? Oh, this destroys it. Because it goes through here. Really? Ah, I see the problem. This isn't great, but this will work. Problem is that task.wait yielded this, and so it didn't get to here until. So we're going to spawn a bunch of these things. That's fine. So you see how where are the lasers colliding with? Because my offset's not large enough. It's colliding with my own chip. And if I fire it down, it triggers right away, but it doesn't know what it collided with. There's a lot of subtlety here. I'm trying to get to a reasonable point here and then move on to other things. I think I'll do the last 40 minutes of spaceship stuff, and then just next stream I'll do simpler things. I realize this is a really complex system that people are diving into. And I have a large list of things I want to do, a lot of which are very simple. A solution to this problem, again, we could get into custom collision and start using raycast instead of using the actual trigger volume. It could solve several of our problems at the cost of others. You can't raycast into a trigger volume, or it doesn't tell you. You could do an actual, like, is overlapping, or like, if you knew the shape of the collision, if it wasn't a capsule, you could just write your own code. I guess, even with a capsule, it's not too hard. But with a sphere or a cube, it's very easy to say at this point inside. You can write that function yourself. For now, we will... Let's see, don't want to leave that thing I just wrote. I kind of wanted the explosion to be in the right spot, right? So you, when you fire down, it collides immediately, but then it just explodes on the ground. That's not very helpful. I think we're just going to hope people are far enough away and get rid of the thing I just wrote here. Just Just leave that as is. You can't collide with yourself. You can't collide in the first frame. If you're too close, you can't shoot them. All right, let us fix the angle. Seems to be, it's just taking not taking my angle at all. You know what's happening here, I think, is that the projectiles don't take your rotation. When we spawn a projectile on execute, we give it a rotation, which is, yes, we don't actually give it a roll. But we shouldn't care. We should be taking, you know, we just care what we want the projectile as a line to the ring to go that way, right? The way that's the axis of the ring is the projectile itself. So if we do this correctly, it shouldn't matter that we didn't have a roll in the first place. We might be able to construct it with the parts of the like actually using rotation operators instead of quaternion operators. It's hard to think about. And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm thinking way too hard about this. One solution. Back to design solutions versus programming solutions. Is that one of the advanced properties on this guy was which parts you want. So if I find this guy, oops, I don't want to set an offset on a subpart. We just uncheck enable ring. Doesn't matter what angle it is. It's way better. Look at that, solved with one checkbox. And we just take this script here, get rid of this line entirely, put this line right here, clean that up. Great. All right. Now our explosions always look correct. All right. In the case of actually hitting another ship, this is the case that's important. We don't want the two cases I described earlier. We don't want it to mismatch, which is you don't want to do damage and not see an explosion. You don't want to see an explosion and not do damage. So we're going to try to take let's expand this guy. We're going to take this geo folder and turn collision off. Admittedly, this is a client context. This might not do anything. We might have to use these ones. It still might not work. We're going to find out. Basically, you can't shoot the other ship at all. Nope, that didn't work. Did I have to do the template? Probably didn't. Maybe I did. Nope, okay, that didn't work. So we'll turn that back on. We'll take all of the pieces of the ship, force off collision, update template. That didn't work. All the pieces and update, turn off parts of collision. Damn. It is possible, because I'm playing single player preview, that I am shooting the trigger itself. Let's turn that off. Nope. Okay. Turn that back on. Turn these back on. Nope, not you. What am I colliding with? I can find out. In here, we don't even say anything about other. Print other. Trigger. Okay. The pilot trigger? It's been interesting to develop. I can't get in if I do that. Shoot. Alright, let's turn off the pilot trigger only in this guy. Other trigger. Okay, so that is, I'm actually in the server collision. No, this one. The server representation trigger. There's only 2 triggers in here, right? And this would never collide on a network game. Alright, so the geo is actually not colliding at all. I think. Which is good and bad. This humorously solves itself in one way. We're gonna set this back to. All right, so that's got collision. It's got collision. We're gonna reset tempo in this guy, and then we had another bug that I hadn't actually fixed yet. It's further down the line. 2 people can't get in ship. But this is, we're going to do this right now because it's causing, essentially doing the same thing here. Should say, you shouldn't be able to get in a ship someone already in, obviously. I just never fixed it. The pilot trigger, the server doesn't currently have a reference to, but it should. So, server scripts. Nope, we're template. Nope, not you. Server script. This pilot trigger should be further up in order. Yeah, we'll move it way up here. Just by order and hierarchy. Alright, so this solves half of the problem. And a part of the other problem. When someone gets in the ship, we collision, turn off collision. Alright, so this solves half the problem because if 2 people run up to the ship at the same time and hit F, they will both get into the ship because it takes a round trip for this collision to replicate. And there's no check in here that says, hey, there's someone in the ship already. The other half is to not move out. This almost solves our problems. The problem is that the getting into the ship is 2 separate things, the client and the server independently. I guess the client sends a message to the server. If we just block, like I just did, in fact, I'm actually going to remove that, then the second person still gets the client side of it, and they think they're in the ship. They're not, which is even worse. They'll set their camera, and then they'll be like dragged around with the ship that someone else is flying, or something like that. Instead, we want the client themselves to know that someone's in the ship, which I don't know if they can do. Oh, they can. Hey, look at that. Because our ship doesn't support getting out, right? This is very convenient. If player is not local player, down here, we're going to set some value that says you can't get in now. Instead of in ship, we're going to have local as pilot. I'm only use it here. Else, I don't even need an else here. If anyone interacts at all, there's a pilot. I lied. Right. So if there's not a pilot, great, then you get in. If anyone else interacts, or if anyone else interacts, this doesn't trigger because that's not true, but you still have a pilot. As soon as there's a pilot, you can't get in. Assuming you actually get the message from the client, then they've already tested. Join in progress. Let's... Actually, that should be fine. Let's not worry about that. Let's say if you like joined right as someone else got in and your script didn't run fast enough, so you didn't get this catch, but then the trigger would turn itself off in a second, so there's a very narrow window where you can get into the ship. Not worried about that anymore. Where did I put that before? Okay. So now, the pilot trigger is going away, which means you can only call out the correct trigger. And if I go to multiplayer, what we should see is script error. Why did I do that? What we should see is that you can't shoot the ship. But we're not going to see that with script error, probably. Attempt to exit Spaceship server 2. That probably means I typoed something. No trigger. What did I do before that I was having this problem? I don't remember. That's actually kind of terrifying. Oh, I didn't update the template. Got it. Yep. Right, so no script errors. Inner ship. Trigger. Which trigger? 7B and occasionally 2B. Well, this one is 7B. The one that should have exclusion. Oh, there's no one in it. Test is flawed. Is this 2B? Where's 2B? 2B, 3D, that guy. Is that one of the lasers? Are they shooting each other? No, we're gonna... Let's see if 2B is one of these projectiles. I guess if they collide, they would explode immediately, so they might not. That one might not be there. 2B, 2B. Oh, it's 2B again. It's the same one. So it's not a spawn thing. They'd all have different numbers. All right. So what is? Is that my own ship? This is something. Is it 70 now? No, they changed their... Where was this guy? There's a guy, okay. That's the server trigger. Where am I printing it? Okay. So this script would hit for both server and client. So occasionally we were hitting the collision trigger, which is to say, occasionally it happened to jump in a frame in a way that it went from outside bolt to inside bolt, and then when it did its check, it hit this one first before this one. And so it triggered that one, and that was on the server only. Great, that's fine. What we want to do instead is we want this outer trigger to... we're kind of banking on the fact that you're only going to shoot the ships that have pilots, and everyone's like, you can use the static player equipment to give every player ship, for example. I guess you can't use static player equipment with this setup not to be an equipment. You could adapt static player equipment to do this, right? You could... There'd be some work to get it if you want to shoot the ships on the ground. To not have the trigger be in the way. Maybe you actually tag the triggers as collidable, and it only checks those. We kind of want it to explode when it hits the ground, just static meshes and that sort of thing, so we want to do that exactly. But what we're going to do is very simple. We're going to duplicate the collision trigger and have the client collision trigger that's exactly the same. You'd think I could put this outside the representation, but I can't, because the only things that move in this template are the geo folder, the camera, and the server representation. Those three things are detached and moved on their own. Everything else stays the same. So I need a separate collision trigger down here. It doesn't have to do anything. It's got to be in the same place. It doesn't do anything. It just moves. But it's going to be there as a thing you shoot at, and it's going to line up correctly. All right. Go back to this guy. Well, we'll print that for now. Let's try 2 players. I'm starting to get to the point where I might just say, hey guys, jump in the game with me if you want. Let's shoot each other. I moved my mouse too far off. Alright, so I shoot that one, but there's no one in it. This guy can't get in this ship. Great. It does seem like projectiles sometimes hitting each other. Also, my computer is struggling, which is possibly just because my computer is not that fast. And I've got several full screen renders going on, and possibly I'm doing something horrible, and this is running very, very slow. Let's just pop this open for a sanity check. I'm going to put this guy up here. And I killed him. I got a whole bunch of script errors out of it. I went to the same script error out of it. Alright, so sanity looks okay. My CPU and GPU were not great. CPU has a few spikes in here. I'm actually curious about that. GPU is probably just kind of rendering 3 copies. Actually, both of them are probably just going to have 3 copies of the game open on it. And I'm streaming on a mediocre computer. Spaceship server 67 and 52. No value. Server 52. Pilot. Oh, okay. They're not called player. Okay, that's easy. 67. ID equals spaceship. Okay, so we're trying to. The client is sending updates when the ship is not there. That makes sense. The client doesn't know it's destroyed yet because that takes time. And like, when it is destroyed, it'll destroy the script and stop running tick. When it stops running tick, it'll stop sending updates. It doesn't know yet. So we need to do a check. And not accept the updates if the thing is destroyed. The client will know soon enough. We could also, on destroyed, disconnect this function. I'm not going to do that. Although, I guess I got my answer to do these things disconnect on their own. They don't. And in fact, enter ship's going to have these. Well, it's running a cult again, but it has the same problem. We probably should disconnect these, honestly. Does events.connect return the same thing? Let's find out. Events. Return a handle. That listener sure does. All right. So. Handle. Let's enter ship and ship update. Enter ship. Ship update handle. And then on destroy, we just connect them both. And then hopefully I don't actually need that check. Let's find out. It's out of here. First ship. Nope, not you. Ooh, Raptor. Ooh, my precious frame rate. Takes 20 shots to blow them up. Dead down here. Dead forever because there's no respawning in this map. There's no more ships anyway. And no errors. Got some static mesh collisions. I believe that's the terrain every time, right? Or the terrain, the ground thing we made. Yes, it is. All right, I think this actually works. Oops, that's not interest. Sorry, give me a second. I'm still gonna launch the clients and then we'll figure it out. All right, so client side collision trigger match. Sure, got it. Getting shot, projectile input. We didn't do that. So when you're taking damage, it doesn't do anything, right? Because your camera is off in one place and your ship is invisible, but not moving, I think. Yes, we don't actually do the interpolation if you're not in the ship. We could. That might solve the problem. You're still doing on-network property change, you're still updating stuff. Despite the ship being invisible, it's still there. You'd be hearing collisions behind you, probably. So this is just moving Geo. Geo's not touched when you're in the ship. Yeah, that might be a cheap solution to this problem. Move this up here, move this down the line. So we're moving the invisible collision volume, and this way, this should actually line up correctly, right? Because you're going to get the same ship that everyone else gets, and the server has. It's invisible, but it's there. Where do I set the visibility for it? When you get into it. Okay. Oops. So let's hope that works. Custom laser offset. I think it's just got that. Damage numbers, health bars. Well, health bars are easy. That one I can do. Wow, I got health bars. Damage numbers, I'll leave that as an exercise at the reader. Custom laser offset. That is actually pretty easy, so we're just going to do it. I think. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So in our spaceship, let us destroy the second spaceship for now. Health bar, put it up here. Get our spaceship. This needs to be, that's what this is for, laser offsets, just group doing nothing. So we're going to, it needs to be visible from the client and the server because they both have to do the same thing. I forgot Control G, put these inside of each other. I wonder how much this actually needs to be networked. I just realized I could probably make the root of this not networked. No, we destroy them, never mind. Like this could be a static. This could even be not part of the template. Let's static context. Sure, why not? Laser offsets. Right there. You in there. Put it back in the middle. What were my laser offsets in script? Through 200 to the side. So Y 200. Yep, that looks about right. Y negative 200. Okay. Now both scripts need a reference to this. That looks like that guy. You're almost there. Client, server, client. It's the last one after ability. I put it in the wrong place. Whoops. There. And on the server, it's the second to last one. Okay. And this right here is not actually what we want. We want to call it something else and build it up right here. I tend to have this pattern sometimes where if I have it takes some logic to build up a table. Like the top is all like the constants and variables, and if it takes a logic, I do at the bottom. In this case, I'm gonna put it right at the top just to make it obvious what's happening. Excuse me. All right. Laser offsets. I need to rename this group because I want to call it the actual variable that stores the actual offsets, laser offsets. So on both of these at once. That. And then this guy, what do I call him? Done. Binding, on execute. So what are we doing? We are making this table for child and pairs offsets group data children. Just assume everything in that thing, every child of that group or static context, whatever, is a laser offset. And laser table dot insert child get position. So I want the local position, not the world position, just as reference relative to the parent. We just grab it. If you were to take the laser offsets group static context and move it, this would feel wrong, but don't do that. I could try to you know, I can't take into account the spaceship's offset, so I would need to do like more complex logic. I'm not gonna transform it and do this just so you can handle that one case. Make a bunch of complexity in the code. That should work. And then I'm gonna copy this over to this script, which had got offsets up here. We're gonna do that. And test it in single player. All right, and then the obvious test, just make goofy to it. Can throw way up there. Totally works, okay. Did it. Oops, I hope that's fine. Let's take a view at history. No, I hit Control Z a bunch of times. Wasn't sure if I undid something I should have. I might have. I want to take the print statement out of there. Where is that print statement in here? So we have a game. The way we play this game, since I'm no, I do this all manually, so it doesn't care. I don't care what team you're on. We need to do some team logic manually if you want to do that. We're going to take the spawn points. Spawn points. We're going to update this template. Actually, even better, we're going to delete most of these spawn points. We'll put you next to your own spaceship. You get your very own spaceship. These two in a group. And then zoom way out and make spaceships far away from each other. There we go. All right, this game will work for a little bit. I'm going to make the laser do no damage so we can test the mechanics. Because as soon as the ship dies, you'll spawn at a point. And if you spawn at a point without a ship, you'll be very sad. I could put a big pile in the middle, but whatever. Not doing damage seems fine. Laser projectile, 0 damage. Update, publish. Let's get that out of the hierarchy. Publish. I hope at least some people want to test with me. We'll find out. Spaceship test map. World full of lasers. Tags. Action. Sci-fi. Multiplayer. Yep, okay. Screenshots. Screenshots. What are the screenshot 01? Windows 7, please. Those are terrible screenshots. There appears to be no way to remove screenshots. That is not ideal. And we can support up to 9 players. Because I put 9 spawn points, right? Alright, sweet. Copy link. That over here. And back to battle. Oops. I panicked and hit the wrong button. 1 second. Actually, panic's the wrong word. I just didn't read. Two, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got a ship. Does anyone else have a ship? I see someone shooting lasers. I see 2 people. That's an interesting side effect. Our lasers are colliding with each other. That's sweet. It's way cooler than I thought. 1, 2, and 3 are the thrusters, by the way. My ship is behaving very strangely. All right, we got some bugs. This is a very strange bug. Seems like someone collided into me, and then I can't move anymore? Or I can't move back into the map? I don't know what you guys are experiencing here. Yeah, my ship goes where I want, except for it really wants to go away from the map. I don't know if you guys see me over there. I think I'm colliding with something. That doesn't make sense. I'm gonna close and join again. Games. There's no new games. Alright, let's go back in. Yes. 1 is no thrusters, 2 is low, 3 is high. Yeah, the motion's really forked. I can't go a certain direction. Maybe our ships are interacting with each other. You guys seem stuck over here too, right? I see you stuck over here. How curious. This may be debuggable solo. I'm curious what's going on, but I am about out of time, unfortunately. I said I was going to just go move on to other things after the script, or after this stream. I will, but I do want to figure out what's wrong with this, because this is clearly very broken in a strange way. And it's hopefully not too bad. Let's take a gander right now. Go back to my spaceship map. If I play single player preview. Oh, I actually just broke it. I just broke in single player preview. I'm sorry, guys. I probably pasted something wrong in the script or something. What did I do? Did I name two variables the same thing? That is wild. Oh, I know I did. Sorry, guys. One minute, let me fix this. The problem is when I pulled this logic out, so I used to have the, if you're in the ship, it does one thing, if you're out of the ship, it does another thing, and I pulled the other logic out to always keep track of that. I'm using the same variables in both cases. I forgot that I had been efficient there. I need separate variables for this or else it's colliding horribly. And in fact, oh, in fact, this doesn't happen if you're in the ship. I actually checked for that. All right, so this is a quick fix. I'm gonna fix it and then we'll try again. I was just testing shooting after that. I never tried the moving when I broke it. So what we need to change is current offset is fine. It's current position and speed. And we don't have quaternion. Okay, current position and speed. We can't use these variables for both cases because they fight each other and horrible things happen, as you saw. All right. How do we want to rename these? Local, it's coming out. Current server position. Maybe replicated speed. Yeah, I'll call it replicated. All right. So the first thing we're going to do, look for current position. Copy this one, look for current position, and say we need to change it here. We need to change it these 3 places. Okay, easy enough. And same thing for speed. I like selecting it so I know that I'm not missing a case, so that I probably could just Control F. Down there, okay. That's horrible. Let's take this line. Okay. I think I'm going to change the name of offset to replicated offset. No, that's fine. And then in here, we need to take out that right there. Little blue box, top right of the screen. I actually don't know what you're talking about. And it was it. I thought about this a little bit. Oh. And since my screenshots were blue, I couldn't see it, of course. That makes sense. The design was that you can't move backwards or left or right at all, right? So I could have done W. And maybe that's what I should have done. There's also, hey, we want multiple speeds, so do I, and you press it once, you don't have to hold it. I thought about doing it a different way. The previous one I held spacebar, which could have been W. And you can't, yeah. You can't do a lot of the movement you can do while flying because it's supposed to be limited to spaceships. It's supposed to be kind of like a dogfight thing. Okay, so I believe I fixed the movement. All right, it feels to be correct. We split the variables apart. It probably will fix some shooting things too. We're going to update the template. Even though when you update a script, you don't actually have to do that. Ah, yeah, see, that blue X is just totally visible in my blue background. We're get a spaceship in view. My excellent artwork. Update. That's the same link, right? B7. Yep. All right. Well, if you want to try again, do one more go at it. This is a very sorry rocket. You are not wrong. It was the minimum effort to be least identifiable by most people. These lasers colliding with each other are sweet. I like this a lot. It does appear that lasers are colliding with each other, like successive lasers. Which maybe just means we turn the fire rate down a little bit. Yeah. Could also turn the collision box a little lower, or the speed higher. I talked about changing it to a raycast mechanism instead, which has its ups and downs. Mostly downs, because the raycasts don't hit the triggers, and the triggers enable us to do client-server only stuff. All right, that was really cool. I'm glad this is mostly working. If I sit still, where are you guys? Because if I sit still and you shoot me, I wonder if I hear it. Of course. I have a bug. I have a stupid bug. Alright, so I'm going to turn the fire rate down as the first solution to that problem, and then we're going to end this in a second. But laser ability cooldown. It's actually just recovery, maybe? Why did I put it in recovery? I don't know. Who knows why I did that? Let's make it half as much. Put some cooldown on it. The bug is that sound is based on your player position, and the player is down underground. However, we can solve that problem, sort of. All right, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna mention how you can solve this problem, and then I'll mention it to Russ when he wants to use this. The problem is the sound is spatialized, and spatialized based on where you are, and you're underground. We need to spatialize it ourselves, or find some way to bring the player along, or wait for the future feature where you can change how that works and put the ear wherever you want. Good point. The acceleration does it. The way I would do this is by somehow transmitting the information, like making publicly accessible to other scripts who is the pilot of a ship. Just when you get in a ship, just set a user data or something on the ship itself. And then in the laser projectile, when I hit a thing, actually, no, I put it in the... You need this in a global table somewhere of like listener positions. So you'd have a... you really don't care about your own listener position. So what I would do is... in here, when you set the camera position, I would also store this into a global data, like just underscore g dot listener position equals current position, like that. Current position. And then for every sound you want to play in this entire game, which is going to feel a pain, I would make a script that you make them non-spatialized and make a script that spatializes them for you. In fact, it's Friday. Let's do it. Let's make this. All right. So listener position's right in there. Done. Easy. So we know where that is. This isn't hard. Update our spaceship, cannon, sound effects. That's the one when you shoot. Are those spatialized? They are. Are they silent when you're far away? I guess they are. Or is it actually this? I thought it was the... Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's the camera that does the listening. I thought it was the player. Because I can definitely hear it. And if that's the case, why am I not hearing the explosions? Maybe I'm just totally wrong with this. Camera would make sense. Camera's in the right spot. Okay, back to my script. Don't need the line I just wrote. So, why then? Why, oh, why? Can I not hear the explosions? They should be going boom, boom, boom. Did I have autoplay on? It does not have autoplay on. How embarrassing. You think I would have noticed that earlier. Alright, also, occlusion seems fine on that one. Alright, that was a much easier fix. This is really obviously different. That's a little bit much. I guess if you're depending on the scale of your game, that might be fine. I'm going to take this and turn it down to half the distance. And update. Let's go pitch it up a little bit, right? I want it to be a little snappier. And there's two different pitch sliders in that effect. Let's fly away. You're saying autoplay should be on by default? I actually like it being off because there's two patterns to playing sounds, right? One is spawning them and letting them destroy themselves, and one of them is having a static object that you call play on. And calling play on an object is actually a much better, like cheaper pattern when you can do it. Great, it works. Huzzah. Alrighty. Let us take our spaceship and update the Community content. Yep. Sweet. Well, thank you for watching, everyone. I'm glad we made the spaceship functional. I am going to knock this off my to-do list, and next time, probably going to do some this weekend. I'll see where it goes. Probably put up a schedule when I can. I'm going to do a consistent schedule during the week and the weekend. You know, sometimes I have things happening. Sometimes we all have the coronavirus going on and we don't actually do much. And I've got a lot of other things I want to make, a lot of small pieces that'll be useful in a lot of places. I thought of some new stuff today I think will be super cool. And if you have requests, if you want me to build things for your game, let me know. If you have questions, whatever. Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.